Hi there, and welcome to another episode of The InEVitable. This is the MotorTrend podcast where we talk about the future of the automobile, the future of mobility. Where are we going? How are we going to get there? And also, what are we going to be watching soon?
Yes, and today we have two very special guests from a movie that drops tomorrow. If you're listening to us in the U.S., it is the Gran Turismo movie. And this guy over here says it's actually really, really good. And we have both the inspiration for the movie, racing driver Jann Mardenborough, as well as the director, Neill Blomkamp. And the latter is somebody we've been really trying to get on and talk to for a long time because we know he's a huge car nut, and which makes this thing all the better because you have a huge car nut directing a movie about, really one of the most storied franchises in video game racing history, Gran Turismo.
Yeah, and he made a really good movie, so let's get into it with Jann and Neill.
All righty, here they come. All right, so let's welcome, I'm going to butcher it, Jann Mardenborough.
Nice.
That's close.
Close.
Yeah.
And
It was the end, right?
Yeah.
It was the borough.
And Neill Blomkamp.
Blomkamp.
Blomkamp. Dang it.
I was just doing that to mess with you, actually. I don't mind. You got it right.
Okay, thank you. One more time on Jann. Just say your own name, Jann, please.
I'm going to say my name right now. Jann Mardenborough.
Okay, so for those of you listening, he's clearly not from around here. He's from Alabama or something like that.
Right, yeah.
And then Neill is from South Africa, but you'll actually probably get more, I think it's Canadian in there. Yeah.
I was 18 when I got to Canada, so
Yeah.
I have shed a vast amount of South African accent.
Oh, but the vast, so when you just said vast was quite South African.
It's a hybrid.
Vast.
Yeah, I'm a hybrid at this point.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. Big day for you guys because tomorrow, we're going to time distort here. Tomorrow, when after this podcast airs, your movie will open in the U.S. This is the broad thought.
No, in Europe. In Europe.
Oh, Europe.
Yeah, America's the 25th.
Yes. Well, that's it. This podcast will go up.
Oh, okay. I thought you said tomorrow.
No.
Time distort. Yeah,
Okay.
This will go up the day before. So if everyone was confused,
Relativity,
tomorrow in the U.S.
Yes.
Which is the broadest release? Do we say? I don't even know. Is that the? How's that?
Are we talking about the United States?
In the U.S., yes.
The U.S. Release has been changing basically daily with this film. So I think all of America is, and I think including Canada, is the 25th of August.
Okay.
I think most of Europe is the 11th of August.
Okay, so it'll already be out in Europe by the time you hear this.
Is there another window after that it's going to go? Someplace
Japan weirdly, sometimes Japan lags behind. I don't know why, but it's coming out, I think, mid-September in Japan.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's quite a Japanese-centric film, actually.
Yeah, which is why wouldn't they go first?
I don't know how it works.
Because that's not how the movie business works.
Yeah, there's some very strange alchemy with wizards and stuff doing experiments that determine the release dates of films.
Okay, so this is great because we've been trying to get both of you guys here in some capacity for a long time. I've been dying to talk to Neill because we know you're a big Nissan, you're a big car fan, and you've been a big Nissan, particularly GTR fan. I want to talk about that. Okay. And then, of course, Jann, we've known about you. As MotorTrend, we've been tracking your progress through GT Academy.
I've been writing about you for a long time.
For a long time. So now the two have come together like peanut butter and jelly because the Gran Turismo movie, which, of course, if you're a car nerd, you know the big gaming institution that Sony PlayStation has built, now coming to a theater near you. So let's just get a lot of that part out of the way first, and then before we go into your
how did this happen?
Is this sorry if this is how many media tour? How many have you guys done this a lot? Together, done interviews, podcasting.
Remember, because of the SAG strike, the way that the film is rolling out is now not what was originally anticipated, right? So it's been vastly reduced because really the only people that can speak about it is Jann and I, and then Doug Belgrad, the producer, and Assad from PlayStation.
That's right.
So it's minuscule compared to before. So we had a European tour which got turned into just a social media event in Barcelona, which the both of us just got back from, and that's it really. Other than this,
for those of you who don't follow Hollywood, there's a big writer first started with the writers and now involves the
Yeah, now it's
actors.
the actors.
And the actors who are in the movie
Yeah.
essentially can't speak about.
Yeah, the
like,
actors
Can't
can't
do
promote
anything.
it,
Yeah.
Interesting. So
That's nice that you guys are actually able to do this because
So you're saying you wouldn't normally have done this level of
That's not what
publicity?
he's
Oh
saying.
no, I would
just saying, I don't know.
be on here any day of the week, man. I love cars, so
So how, I want to know how does it? Okay, so first of all, we should talk about who you are, Neill.
Mm-hmm.
So you directed famously District 9. That was your first kind of big movie nominated for Best Picture.
It was the first feature film I ever directed. Yeah,
and you do a lot of shorts.
yeah.
And then, so how does someone who kind of seems to specialize in alien invasion type things get to a video game movie? I'm very curious.
Actually, I would say the step to video game film is very much in my wheelhouse. I think it's the non-science fiction sports drama that's a kind of an adjacent sidestep that is not really something that I anticipated even for myself, but. I do have an obsession with cars that goes back a long time, and what the sequence of events was I had actually written a film for Sony that was much more like what people would expect from me, which is a dystopian science fiction film that I still want to make. I totally love it, but we were waiting a long time for a very specific actor, and there was a whole bunch of scheduling issues and stuff, and I was going to go off to go do something else, and they said, like, hang on, do you want to take a look at this Gran Turismo movie that we're doing? And I literally had no idea how you could make a film out of that title.
Right.
It made no sense to me because obviously it's a racing simulator. So I was like, well, I think I even said to the executive, Peter Kang, who was handing it to me, I was like, I will read it just because I'm curious, like genuinely curious, like how you would even go about this. And immediately I started realizing it was about Yunn's story. Right. And I didn't know about Yunn, and I didn't know about GT Academy, which is kind of strange. And so it became this movie where the video game was inside the world of the film, the way that something like Facebook would be inside the world of the social network.
Right.
It's a biographical drama.
Right.
And I thought that was a hyper unusual way to make a video game film.
Right.
And then I've never thought about really making a sports movie, and definitely not one with cars. And all of a sudden I was like, why wouldn't I make a film about cars? I mean, I love cars. And these two things sort of merged. But the main thing, I think, was, especially after writing this very dark sci-fi film, which is very dark, I was thinking a lot about sort of positive value. Like, what positive value do films put into society? And this particular story reminded me of movies like Rocky or films that I had seen as a kid that I found very inspirational. It's a different kind of inspirational to the movies that drew me into wanting to make movies, right? Like Blade Runner. But it's a kind of self-belief inspiration that kind of, I was like, actually, I want to contribute to that genre, at least one film.
Sure.
And that was the primary reason, really. And then I met Yunn, and I think his story is super, super inspirational and very cool. So that's basically what happened.
So let's pivot to Jan for just a second. So Jan, when did you first play this video game, Gran Turismo, that is like, come to define your life in a lot of ways?
Age 8.
Okay.
So the story is quite, I believe in fate. And there's a lot of sequences have happened that have led to this moment, which is very kind of, if one went wrong or one didn't go to plan or like that, like it has done, I don't know what would have happened till now. It's very unusual. So I came across Gran Turismo when I was 8 during a, Guy Fawkes bonfire night in the UK,
sure.
where a guy just tries to blow up the Houses of Parliament.
Yeah.
So we celebrate this every year. I don't know why.
It's a famous Simpsons joke. Every night is Guy Fawkes night. Go ahead.
So my parents had some friends across the street from us, and I went over there. And instead of socializing, watching a bonfire night, I didn't like fireworks at the time. I didn't like loud noises. My parents' friend had a PlayStation 1 and GT1, so I started playing that game in the living room. I played. I remember the car. It was a pink or a violet Mitsubishi 3000 GT around Autumn Ring.
Okay.
The detail of my memory of that point is really strange. How kind of vivid it is. It was very unusual. And then the following days, I would come home from primary school and always be at their house, just going over there playing it.
So for context, Jonny, you were born in 1991.
Yes.
So He's 8 years old. This is 1997.
Yeah.
So you're old. That's
Oh,
what
I'm
saying.
old. Yeah, no, we're yeah.
I
Ed
remember
and I
that
are
too.
very old. No.
It's also the same year I moved to Canada and got a PS1.
Okay.
It's hilarious. Like 97 is an interesting year.
Yeah. What did I do? I graduated from college, I think. But did you have any interest in cars?
Yeah, so at that moment, it was just Matchbox cars,
Okay.
literal Matchbox cars, which again was due to my family going over a friend's house, and they had a younger child, the same age, similar age to me, and he had these little Matchbox cars, and that was the first interest I had in anything beyond spoons and peas.
Right.
Maybe 5 or something.
Sustenance.
Yeah, just to go around in a pram with a spoon. It's like that. That was my thing for years. But that moment, it was little Matchbox cars, and then I had them, all the time. And then finding a PlayStation where there was now cars that I could see, which I never saw before. Because I could recognise cars from the street.
But you were car crazy.
Yeah. I
from a
watched
young
motorsport around that age as well. The find of GT and then motorsport around the same age. I'd watch British touring cars mainly. Didn't know what F1 was.
How old were you when you were watching British touring cars?
Around the age 8 again.
Oh,
so it
so
was that
that's-
97, 98, 99
that's
season.
early, though.
Yeah.
That's
Good time to be watching British
But
touring
you're
cars.
Mega,
car
it's the peak.
obsessed, and
Yeah.
then you found this video game. And as you pointed out, I've been to Cardiff. Not a lot of crazy sports cars running around Cardiff. So you're seeing that's what's great about Gran Turismo is here's a way to really look, because they do such a good job even back then of the cars look cool and they look like the real sports cars.
Well, it was important to me at the time that I could distinguish GT after age 8, age 9 or something, GT to like a Sega game. So it was important to me that what I'm driving,
Like not an arcade game, but like
Yes.
a realistic driving.
absolutely.
Right.
That was important to me. Even then, it was, and just the variety of cars that they had on there. So I was kind of I was centric. I'd books, I'd watch on TV, I would play the games, and then I'd had multiple PlayStation 2s and Gran Turismo 2, 3, 4, for all of them.
Let me
But
ask you: were you any good at the game? Like, were you naturally talented at playing the game, or that took a lot of practice, or were you did you have any?
Man, it's hard to say because when online wasn't a thing on PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2. So I was just playing split screen with my dad or my brother or some friends that I had locally in my street.
And
And
destroying them.
Yeah, I would go the slower car because... but I didn't think... I just thought it was good. I didn't know... I just played for fun. Then when I had PS3 and GT5, then the online thing started happening. And then I would just play online. I never did any time trials, found that boring. I just liked to compete and race against real people. And then I thought I was pretty good, but again,
No context, right?
yeah, I never did competitions. I just played for fun.
And you never, let me ask you this, did the thought I should do this in a real car ever come into your head? Or you're just you know what, I like this so much and it's so realistic, I'm just going to stick with the game?
Well, I guess when I was 8, I just knew the cars. I really love cars. But when I had a concept of what a job was, maybe 2 years later, then it was okay, I want to do that. Because my dad, from a very young age, which is another kind of seed planted in my head, which is I think got me to where I am now, was he played football, soccer, for 13 years as a pro.
Yeah. I saw the movie.
Well, so you'd always tell me and my younger brother, do something in life which brings you purpose and that you're passionate about. When you're 8, you don't really understand what that means. But when you have a concept of what a job is, it's okay.
When you're 47,
That.
you might not understand.
You find out at 47.
I'm 48. Go ahead.
So it was cars from that moment onwards. So, as I grew up, it's okay, I just love to do this as a job. That's my thing. I didn't know you could do karting outside. I had no idea how I was going to do it.
Right, okay.
At all, zero.
That's great.
I didn't know you could do I call it go-karting, which is
Karting,
what it's
yeah.
karting. I didn't know you could do it until I was 15 or 16 years old outside.
It's funny, I have a 6-year-old and he was talking about go-karts the other day. And I remember back, when I was 5, all I wanted in life was a go-kart. But just my father had no idea how to get me into a go-kart, just none. I probably wouldn't have been that good. But I just wanted to own a go-kart when I was, and I used to go look at riding lawnmowers because here's a small thing that my parents could buy me. They didn't buy me one, obviously, but like it was a motorized thing. So I was saying I was just obsessed with like.
I love the idea of a parent buying the child a lawnmower as a substitute. Like
my dad didn't know what to do. He just didn't know.
Take the blades off.
He just didn't know about.
Oh,
lawnmower
racing is a thing.
Yeah, no,
but let's pause just for a second on Jann's story. So because you mentioned you got your first PS1. Were you a gamer at all? Were you playing with? Did you play Gran Turismo early?
Gran Turismo was not in my immediate wheelhouse. My thing was more shooters, or even back then with PS1, it was like Metal Gear.
Yeah.
It was that kind of game. And it's kind of strange that I never really tripled down on Gran Turismo given my obsession with cars, but my brother did, he's also has the same level of interest.
There's a skill
in cars.
to it. I mean, you can't just play
I know, but I never
Gran Turismo.
purchased a proper rig. I always wanted to, and I don't know why I didn't. I mean, like for example, I love I have a lot of radio-controlled helicopters and drones and stuff, right? So I have simulators for those. I don't know if you guys have ever seen those with the same hand controllers.
Yep.
So I have other simulators, and it's like I don't know why I didn't get like the full GT setup. Now I do have one.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but so I was always aware of it, and I would kind of flirt with it a bit, but I never properly got into it, which is odd.
And you went down again. This is me reading the internet, so it could be totally wrong. But you went down like a rabbit hole with Halo.
Yeah,
trying to get Halo made.
Yeah, that's what led to District 9.
Right, and so I just wanted to ask this question: like, it didn't happen because I heard Microsoft was, again, to the internet, like they were annoying about it, to put it nicely.
I think it was more. It was made by two very big studios. I mean, it was 20th Century Fox and Universal that were both co-financing it. And sometimes films with just the way profits are shared and things like if it's not economically viable, they collapse and then they're reborn in some other construct.
And so, were you nervous when this is now Sony, another video game company, is saying, "Hey, make a movie"? You're like, "Oh, I've been down this road before with Microsoft."
I was not really that nervous, to be honest. The reason I wasn't nervous was, I mean, on the political side of things, I was fairly confident it would get made. Sometimes you can tell, like when things are a little bit more dicey versus where they feel like they really need to make this film. So that's one element. But my concern would always be more the creative side of things. And as a 26-year-old on Halo, I knew that had that film been made, I might have been thrown into a meat grinder that treats young directors very difficultly.
Right.
I did have an awesome producer that would have backed me up, but you try to protect your vision for the film.
And two studios would be double.
Yeah, exactly. There was a lot of complicating factors with Halo, but with Gran Turismo, the thing that's really interesting about it is it's the same response that I had when they offered it to me, which is like, well, how do you make a film about that? Meaning there is basically no predetermined notion that people have for it. It's kind of it's a blank slate to some degree.
Right.
Other than it's going to be about cars.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? Like with video game adaptations that have dense lore and story and characters, there's a lot of differing opinions on how those characters or those stories should be portrayed, and mostly from the fans.
Is it canon or is it not canon?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Right.
Like, did you stay true, or
I'm really not interested in that now.
Right.
Like,
right, because I mean, there's there's very good video game adaptations like The Last of Us.
Yeah.
I had no idea it was a video game.
That's the same production company as this film.
Oh,
right?
is it?
Yeah, because they're both PlayStation productions.
Okay, and then I won't mention them. But there's some really bad ones that video game stuff that's been turned into a film, and
there's way more bad ones. Than there are good ones.
Well, there's way more bad movies than good movies. I mean, that's just sort of the way it is. But I know what you're saying. How because there's no lore. There's not that like. But then I guess. There is such a fan base for Gran Turismo where you're sort of banking on like, people grew up with this game like Jann, they're going to just see it because they love the game, or was that part of the thought process?
Well, I think your primary focus has to just be to make a good film.
Yeah.
So it's like whether you know the game or not, the film better be engaging.
Right,
and again, I mean, I was very clear in my own head about this idea of trying to make something that fell in this sort of rocky sports drama kind of zone that felt uplifting in the end, given a lot of strife to get to that point.
Yeah.
So that was the unquestionable goal that I was going for. And so that kind of organizes things beneath it. It creates a bunch of sort of subordinate categories of, yes, I want Easter eggs in there, and obviously it's massively about cars. But as long as the audience connects with Jann and with what he's going through, like that's always your emotional sort of anchor. And this relationship between him and Jack and him and his father, and how that relationship plays out and what he has to overcome as well, which obviously is all true,
Yeah,
So let's catch people up. So this movie, Gran Turismo, debuts again tomorrow in the U.S. It's directed by Neill. It's based on Jann's life. Jonny's seen it.
Yeah.
In a preview. I have not seen it, nor has probably most of the people listening to this. So let's fast forward to Jann's life story. So we understand, introduced to PlayStation and Gran Turismo at age 8, and born in 1991. So 2011 though is like the pivotal year, right? This is when
Correct.
you had entered. Nissan and Sony had a partnership. That was year one. Year one was 2008, I think.
Yes.
For GT Academy.
Yep.
And this is the Gran Turismo Academy. This is taking the Gran Turismo game, opening it up via PlayStation 3 and online gaming, and hundreds of thousands of fans around the world, as long as they have no professional racing experience, can play online, and the best of the best win, advance, and then become what? Finish the story. Did I get all that?
A chance to become a professional racing driver. So the previous 2 years, I can't remember what the prize was, but my year, the prize was a drive in the Dubai 24-hour race in January 2012. So in order to do that, you have to have a certain grade race license, which is an international C. In the movie, it's depicted as FIA license, but it's the same thing. Yeah. So you have to do a load of racing in for me, it was the UK, in order to be eligible to do that race, to get that license.
And to get there, you had to do what though? You had to win at what level in GT Academy in the game? You had to beat everybody in the UK.
So there was 3 processes to the competition back then. So it was the top 20 from 6 different European countries. Over 90,000 people entered that year. And then the top 20 would go through to the next round. And then from the 22 would get selected to go to the international final at Silverstone. And there's, 11 other competitors. And the day, I think we were there for a week. And there's various competitions we do, whether it be in, I drove a Clio Cup car, a GT2Z, flew a plane, an aerobatic plane, loads of fitness, SAS stuff.
Why'd you fly a plane?
There's layers to. When I look back, they really.
That was the marketing element.
Messing with you.
Well, it was kind of a test as well. Because
what do you mean flew? You mean
flew a plane. They want all the instructors.
You didn't land it.
No, I was doing a dogfight.
Oh, okay.
Doing a dogfight with a Spaniard who was also in the competition. But the gist was, look, we want to throw you in situations.
I've had a few flying lessons. I'm like, wait, what do you mean you flew a plane?
Yeah, it was like an air. I can't remember which plane it was, but it was
grab the joystick. And
you have full control. And I'm doing loop-de-loops and barrel rolls, trying to shoot down a Spaniard.
Okay, sounds fun.
So they wanted to put us into situations where it was beyond our limits,
right.
Comfort zones.
Absolutely, and just to see how you handle. Even if you want, none of us have flown an airplane before, but it was more how we handled the situation. If you didn't just flap, when you're in a racing car.
Neill, if you remake this, you left out a key.
No, totally. Now I'm thinking it's like just a room with a gun on a table, and there's just a guy with a towel over his head.
Right.
Born at
Yeah.
Man, if that was in the movie, nobody would believe it. They'd be like, "There's no way you flew an airplane," because people keep saying it now. But
it is
was
a
part
crazy,
of it.
unbelievable story to begin with. I mean, it really I found myself not to give anything away, but I found myself at when you go to the big 24-hour race in France, let's say, I'm like, did that really happen? Oh yeah, it did happen. That's crazy.
A version of that happened. Yeah.
It was cool,
Yeah.
Well, let me just get the setup here just a little bit. So, when you beat out 90,000 people, right? Talk to me about that first stage. Did you go into it thinking you had a shot? Or were you? Again, I haven't seen the movie.
Cool.
I did a little bit of research, but I don't. Were you playing with a? Did you have a steering wheel? Or were you playing with a controller?
No, steering
Let
wheel.
me break it down. So, the rig, which is in the movie, Neill if you look for it, in my room, there's a rig which I'm using, which is my own rig. I built it myself, and Neill modelled it made a replica, which I'm very happy about because he was quite late on when I asked you to do that, which is cool. So that rig, I made that in school during my A-levels in design technology. I'd made that, before that I just played with the joypad until I was 18 years old. I never had a rig because they were expensive. And
you made a rig, so you didn't. What do you mean made it? You didn't go off the shelf and get a Forza. You got whatever Sony had. Sony had their own that was not very good.
Just the frame.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the frame.
Oh, okay.
So like the thing that you sit in with the seat and stuff.
Did you have to save up for the steering wheel?
Yeah. So I was doing 2 courses during that year, 2 final exams, and my parents incentivized me with money. So it's, look, if you get these grades, we'll give you cash. I'd already made the rig in my design technology class in the summer. And when school started, I had 8 design briefs to design this thing too, but I'd already made it. So I kind of just designed something in an Art Deco style. Mm-hmm. So I just painted it in an Art Deco style, and I already made it. And then with my results, I had £300 my parents gave me, and I bought a Fanatec Turbo S wheel.
So about the Fanatec, okay.
Yeah, got that because it was the only wheel you could use with all consoles and PC at the time, which was important.
And now you can put them right on a car.
Yeah, exactly.
I drove Reese Millen's Pikes Peak Bentley, and that was a big deal. The Fanatec was actually the video game, wheel. That was
pretty cool.
On the car.
BMW the same thing. It's great. It's great. It's great. I love that. It's fantastic.
Was that hard though to go from? Because I assume you're using the original PlayStation
just
controller,
to DualShock 2
to the steering wheel. Is that hard?
Well, the only reason I did it was built the rig is because I was bored playing with the joypad. I wanted to take it to the next level. And then
you would have had to got pedals as well, though.
Yeah.
At the same time,
it was I couldn't. They had two different sets of pedals at the time. Fanatec they had these really nice metal set or a plastic set, and I chose the plastic set because I didn't have enough cash to get the bet.
Right.
But they were terrible because they kept on the potentiometer sensor kept on coming loose. So when I was qualifying for GT Academy for 2 weeks, I'm doing 8 to 9 hours a day, and every hour the sensor kept on coming loose. So I kept having to open up the back and reset the sensor. It was the hardest part. One of the hardest parts of the whole process was just qualifying.
I should have put that in the film. I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Sounds cool.
When you do the remake with the airplanes.
Yeah.
Potentiometer failure.
So the rig, that's what I used to, and it's it's in there.
That's
the movie,
fascinating. And it's funny I was the same as you. I had this real blind spot always for driving simulators, and I raced Pikes Peak last year, and you have to sit there on a simulator and learn it. And I would post pictures of myself like on the simulator, and people are like, "Whoa, what kind of blah is that?" And like more questions about the simulator than about. I'm like. So people really do care. It's like a kind of a, like as much as I learned, as much as they care about cars, they seem to care about like the simulator part.
And it's sort of growing in interest and popularity.
And and now I pay attention to them. And it's like the money you can spend on a home simulator is more than the car you own. I mean, it's wild.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of the price of what I paid for my first car and the rig that I've just recently acquired 4 years ago. So
right. It's wild.
Talk to me. I'm curious. Because this is ancient history in the gaming space now. This is way before Twitch or anything like that. What's the smack talk like back then? Like, are you able?
It's like you're around in Call of Duty 4 lobbies. Like it was. It's brutal.
Okay.
But it's a bit different on racing games, though. I would say that it's not.
It's not like Call of Duty.
No.
But the problem.
Could you talk real time while racing?
Yeah.
But you know what the problem is? Because I checked this with Jan. That wasn't the case before GT Academy with whatever version you were racing before GT Academy. No. Couldn't do it. And I wanted to keep it, even though because the movie just sort of straddles. Everything that he did was the early part of the 2010s, right? And then the film is basically just contemporary, on purpose,
right?
But to keep it authentic, it was like this idea of smack talk, which I really wanted in the film. I knew that he hadn't gone through that. That wasn't part of what had happened pre-GT Academy. So like we just opted to leave it out, but it would have been pretty fun.
Hats off to you, the respect, because there was this movie that came out about real racing starring Sylvester Stallone and
Driven.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Where they're able to talk to each other, and they're like,
"Are you talking about like it's like 20 years old?"
Yeah.
No, it's 30 years old, but yeah.
And they're like, "Watch this," and all of a sudden they're just like passing dudes, like they're breaking off like 5 guys a lap because all of a sudden they want to win, and it's like they're talking to each other, and I'm going to do
Isn't
this. and
Mick
it's like,
Jagger the bad guy in that?
I don't remember.
I think Mick Jagger's the bad guy.
No, that's Free Jack.
Oh, that's Free Jack.
Yeah.
yeah.
I haven't seen that since South Africa. I need to watch that again. Jesus.
the number of bad racing movies out there also just they're legendary. There's not many, but there's
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I'm going to say, just spoiler alert. This is a very good film, and I like.
And by the way, he's not just saying that because you two are sitting in front of me.
No.
we
thank you, guys.
we talked about this
Appreciate
last
it.
week, and he's like, "Dude, it's really good. It's like
So,
surprisingly good."
He's like,
I mean-
what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in there. I'm going to tell them it's good, and you, whatever you do, your facial expressions are going to go along with what I'm saying.
I was telling one of your PRs out there that literally on the elevator up to the theater, I was with a colleague from another publication.
This movie's
And, no. and she goes like, "Yeah, it should be pretty good." And I'm like, "Come on! Like, how can a video game car movie be any good?" And then I'm halfway through. I'm like, they forgot to tell the actors that they're making a stupid video game movie. Like they're taking this seriously, and then. It is the Rocky story. I mean, it's incredible. So, but I think back to Ed's question, Jan, like you beat 90,000 people. Like you must have known you were good. You must have known like I have a real shot at this. Or at least, when did you know you had a real shot?
No, like
when did the ego start?
yeah. I'm quite a level-headed person, really, and I mean, don't get me wrong, my ego's massive when I'm in a racing car.
Yeah, it better be. Yeah.
You seem so nice though, dude. You're such a nice. I'd
never
like to
seen
see
in
that.
competition,
I should get in the
like,
passenger seat and go around like a lap with him.
You haven't done that yet?
He's like, it's the monster
No.
has been released.
Yeah, I'm very different. But well, in real life, when I was around that age of entering GT Academy, I just dropped out of university. I was there for 3 weeks doing motorsport engineering. So my social status within the world is on the floor, basically. And I just happened to be at the right place at the right time back in January or February 2011. And there was a new menu of GT Academy. I'd never done any time trials because I find them boring. I just raced online. And my thought was, okay, it's one car, one circuit, top 20 go through the next stage. Competition's open for 6 weeks. Let's see how far I can go. There was never, okay, I want to win this. I knew what the prize was because I've seen the original advert in 2008.
But had you hadn't competed in 08 or 09 before
No,
that?
because 08,
Was it not interesting to you?
I was doing exams. I
Right.
think in 08. 09, it didn't exist because of the financial crisis. And in 10, I think I was doing my A-levels and it just passed me by. I didn't come across
You hear
it
that,
at all.
kids? Study hard.
Or don't. And he dropped out.
No, it's the other way around. Don't study.
Wait,
Well, if you're an elite level race car driver and you don't know it, don't study. The rest of you study, yeah.
I was very lucky. But so it was just to see how far I can go. This door was kind of ajar. I mean, what else do I have to do? I didn't really plan this gap year that I was about to take. And it was just, okay, for 2 weeks, let's just see how far I can go, if I can get to the next stage. And that was it. Got through to the next stage, the intermediate event, won that, got through to the final, and again, didn't think about winning at all until the last event, which was a qualifying for, there was 4 of us left, and the winner of this 20-minute race around Silverstone would be the winner of the Academy. I qualified in pole. That was the only moment I thought I have a chance, not of winning, but
Now,
of a chance
at this point,
something.
you're off the simulator. You're in the cars
completely.
Yeah.
There's no, after the middle phase, there's no, at the final at Silverstone, there's no gaming. You're in
this
cars.
the
with
first
instructors.
time you drove Silverstone?
Yeah.
Like for real?
First time driving anything powerful. First time driving
and that's
a track.
that's a for real track. I mean, Silverstone's no joke track. I mean, that's
Well, it's old school and there's there's
Might
not
be an
much
F1
runoff and
yeah.
it's
Was that
it's,
350Zs?
it was 370 and first gen GTR.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. But it's crazy that so your first time driving Silverstone, you win the race.
Well,
I mean, you know, did you win the GT
first time
Academy?
racing Silverstone.
Yeah,
I
racing,
won the
yeah.
race. That was in a Z. That was in a 370Z with like. I mean,
So you're just really good. You were just really good.
I wasn't the best on day one because
Okay.
there was guys there during the competition that had
Like
done.
the movie.
Yeah, it's like that. I wasn't the best. There was the other British guy was a British drift champion.
Oh, car control.
Because drifting kind of like
car control. Cheaters.
That almost seems like a cheat in a way, because to me, the whole premise of what GT Academy is, and the fact that it's real, like Jann is this idea manifest into reality. That the idea should be take virtual sim racers and put them in real cars and see what happens. So the further away you are from only sim, the more of a cheat it feels. Like if you've been drifting, like and you really have an understanding of a car.
Drifting is like car control, right?
Yeah,
so
it's a disproportionate advantage, I think, for that racer over someone who's never really been in a car.
But they can't go around corners quickly.
Well, I mean,
some can.
That's kind of it's a little bit like that. You know, the karate like in certain martial arts where you stop like an inch before striking the target, and it's like, well, that doesn't work, and it's like, well, why can't I just choose to hit like another inch deeper?
Right.
It's a little bit like that with drifting, where it's like some of them I'm sure can choose to go around quickly.
Yeah. But anyways,
knowing
so
that
that's
as
just
well.
wild to me that's your first time racing is at Silverstone and you eventually win.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
a lot of the
wild.
guys had done karting, maybe not at the level which made them ineligible for GT Academy, but they'd done. For me, knowing this, I had no idea until quite late on in the competition what they'd done. I'm like, oh, cool. I'm kind of like close to you guys, and you've done a lot, and they knew that I did nothing. And if I was up against someone who didn't do anything yet, they're competing, and I'm kind of level playing field, that would really hurt my ego. So I'm like, cool. I'm kind of getting better, and they're kind of staying there.
they've
I mean, I made some
plateaued,
mistakes and stuff, but
It's also, I mean, movie aside, I'm sure it's also really great, probably from the Nissan Sony side. They're like, this guy actually has zero actual motorsports.
Right, best case scenario.
Let's
of
see
course,
how far he goes.
it's it really makes the process of yes, you can use this, and with no experience, what you learn here can be transferable. Like I am the guy. Because zero experience, all I had was GT.
Well, let's actually talk about that real fast because you're 19 when this is happening, right?
Yes.
So did you have your UK driver's license already?
Yes.
What did you take your test in the UK? What car?
It was my mum's car. It was a Hyundai Coupe from 2001.
Okay, super powerful, super
1.6.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, front wheel drive. Looked way quicker than what it actually was.
Oh, was that the Tiburon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Was it
right.
manual?
Nice.
Yeah, it was a manual.
Okay, so you know how to drive manual.
Oh yeah, of course.
I don't know. Like,
Ed, he's not American. Of course he knows how to drive
oh, that's
manual.
right. So, but the 370Zs, as you guys call them, the Zs. Did you were those manual or those automatic?
Oh, there was a mix. So we had.
How do you mix automatic?
No, because we had some road cars there, and some of them were auto. But when they were
In the
when we were
race?
no, not in the race. Just the
Okay.
we used some
training.
regular one for training. Yeah, but
Car
then
control.
in the race we had the stripped out Zs roll cage on instead of 275 rear section tires, they were like 245 non-brown tires.
But all manual.
All manual.
Okay.
Why would they make the tires skinnier?
Because they were very difficult to drive, really. And the Road Z it's not that good on the track doing many laps.
Yeah.
Whereas when they had these Zs were kind of modified, so the radiator was slightly bigger, so they didn't overheat.
Right.
And just cost, I guess, because
Yeah.
And probably
They were just throwing
slow you down
tires.
a little bit too, right?
not really. Well, I guess around the corners, but
Yeah.
I mean they were lethal things
And-
because
and-
they pulled all the fuses out of them, so there was no ABS.
And they were on those
No brake bars,
were
just-
245 slicks, right?
No, they were like
just street tires.
they were like Nitto spec similar,
555 hours.
Okay.
something like that. But they were
Okay.
proper sketchy. You look at any footage from the final from that era.
Yeah, they
were-
do look a little twitchy. Actually, I've seen
So
them.
cost is the answer.
I like anything.
So okay, so you win, you're the man, and you go in your first race, and in the movie there's the bad guy, who's like just a gamer. How much of that did you experience of like?
So to my
This
face,
guy.
it's happened twice to my face. The other stuff I don't know, but I mean I imagine so, but I don't think so much about it. But I can give you an example,
Yeah.
two examples, because this person is based off a real person. The first example, my first ever
great
race.
bad guy, by the way. It's very-
He's
I love that actor too, Yosha. He's awesome.
Yeah, he just looks
Yeah.
evil.
Perfect.
Yeah.
My first race outside the academy was at Pembrey. You know, Pembrey.
I don't actually know.
Why, it's-
No, I mean I've heard of it, but I've never
Wales
been.
is kind of track, really, where F1 used to test it way back. Anyway, I
know
doing the-
Anglesey. That's.
I've never done that. It's too far away from me.
You got to do Anglesey.
Nah, it's very windy up there.
Oh, and rainy and miserable, but it's the best track. It's such a good track.
It looked good.
You got to do it.
So getting my first race of getting my international license, and I'm having a conversation with some gentleman, and then this guy comes over, and he introduces himself as the Welsh sports car and saloon car champion of 2010. Imagine introducing yourself as a champion. So I was like, okay, that's a bit strange, but anyway. He then starts talking, and he says to me, point blank, looking me in my eyes, look, if you see me in your mirrors, don't fight me, just let me go. And
Jesus.
you know, when you say you've never seen me kind of like angry or ego, man, that just lit gasoline in a fire. It was insane.
It's the best thing that could happen.
I love it. I love it.
He was the architect of his own demise.
Yeah. That's wild.
Wait, does that line make it in the movie?
Kind of.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a variation of it.
The bad guy's pretty bad at the movie.
So that's to my face. So there's been other stuff, I'm sure, which has been said, but I don't pay attention to that.
Right.
But the second example, I was doing in 2013 British Formula 3 and European FIA Formula 3 in Europe, and I was teammates with a driver who came from a very wealthy background, which is fine.
Sure.
But he was very... When we were testing in Monza in pre-season testing, like he would joke about how big his phone bill was. And my concept of money at that time is I'm still new to motorsport, so my status is kind of what's the saying?
Imposter syndrome.
Yes, that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was getting quite pissed
I
off.
saw that. Yeah, come on.
And my concept of money and motorsport was still very much how I grew up. So everything, I'm like really aware of everything. And he was just joking, my phone bill for last month was £15,000. I'm like, just casually saying it, and they've shown us videos of him driving Daddy's. He bought Schumacher's F2003 car. He's driving it at Fiorano.
Relatable, yeah.
Just very great, but kind of an arsehole, really. That on track, we hadn't yet raced against each other on track. But
what country is this guy from? I don't want to guess, but
we can guess later on. But he's from Northern America. North America.
Okay.
So.
Interesting.
Sounds Canadian.
So, you know,
he's not racing in F1.
I mean, Daddy's money is always very impressive, right? I mean, nothing impresses me more than
exactly
how you were born.
But there was to my face, there was nothing really said verbally. But on circuits during those years, there was no respect shown. I don't really dislike people in motorsport, really, many people, but this person was very. The racing on track was done in a way where there was no respect. Yeah. And if I was from a normal, went through the normal conventional routes, I very much doubt
probably would have been.
Yeah. So I've been up Eau Rouge on my roll hoop before, because of this person.
Wow.
And that's where really when I got asked by Jason Hall and one of the producers way back when I first met them, and they were asking me, so who's your rival? And this person comes to mind because that's the only. I'm quite a chill guy, but there's that person really is very prominent in my mind because of the lack of. On to my face, I don't care whatever, but when you're very. I'm aware I'm not immortal, but when there's stuff on track that happens because of egos purely, like if I'm racing against me, I would hate it. But I'm aware that of my situation, that I kind of already rub people up the wrong way because of my barrier to entry into where we are now is £500 pretty much, and yours is many more than that. So I'm aware of the situation back then where I'm trying to make my reputation, build my earn respect.
Yeah.
I don't expect respect. I need to earn it. I'm very much aware, but you have to cut your teeth. But I'm also aware of the behaviour against me on track was not fair game, really, because of the background. Now it's completely
Well, you've more than proven
receipts.
yourself.
Let's just for our audience who might still be like, what did he just say? He said he's been through Eau Rouge on his roll cage. So that very famous corner roll hoop. Yeah. Roll hoop, sorry.
Yeah, open top car.
Very famous racetrack, Spa-Francorchamps.
Yeah, in Belgium. And that corner they might be redoing, it sounds like.
It's so fast. It's flat. So basically, this guy you're talking about put you on basically did a move. You ended up on your roof and you're sliding, sparks flying through that corner. So, sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it was a very unusual situation to be going up there 130 miles an hour in the wet and hitting the wall at Radion. And because this person didn't want to give up a corner while we were racing in the wet. And then the journey in the medical car. I'm not a violent person. I can be violent, but you want to do things.
You
to
were
someone.
upset, is what you're saying.
Very.
You were very upset. Yeah.
So
No, it's kind of it's life threatening. It's like
it's that
Yeah.
like stuff your face said to your face is it is what it is, and just deal with it on track. But when there's behavior on circuit where you're in a weapon, it's different.
And that's I mean, like I was saying, like there's been a couple deaths there recently. I mean, they really are thinking about, which would be, I think, a shame, but like you don't want people to die, but like changing the way Eau Rouge is laid out to make it safer. So that's a tough place to crash.
Historic, iconic.
It's top 5 corners in the world. But
Keep the thrill in motor racing. Come on.
It is wet. I've driven it a few
Bullfighting,
times.
boxing, motor racing.
It
right?
really rains
corner.
right there. Yeah. Great track.
So yeah, that's who
Got it.
the
Okay.
person Kappa is based off. A real character.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Very
So
cool.
in the movie, just again for the audience, how closely would you say it hews to the reality? Was this of your life story? Like, is it greater than 50%?
Yes. Yeah.
More than 75?
Yeah.
Oh.
So
I think it's surprisingly close to Jan. I mean, obviously there's some liberties that are taken for sure, but it's like from what he explained, it's like we really did try to keep a lot of it as close as possible. I think people will come out of the movie not thinking it's as true as it is.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and I found myself doing that. You know,
Yeah.
it's one of the, because I know you're not making a documentary, and I remember when Ford versus Ferrari came out. I talked with Mangold for like 45 minutes, and because I said, well, the people that are like, hey, he threw a 7/16 wrench, and everyone knows that was a 10 millimeter, whatever.
Yeah.
And he goes, I'm not making it for them. They already know everything.
Yeah.
Because how do I put this? Like, I feel like I'm just being a nerd. Like, some of the things where you shot them at, like, I don't know, Hungaroring or something, and it was supposed to be somewhere else. And
Silverstone, yeah.
I've driven both. I happen to recognize that. The majority of people watching never heard of anything.
Yeah.
Right. So, and it's true, right?
But there are, you have to think in filmmaking, sometimes there are decisions that you're making, which may be creative decisions, in order to make the film more palatable or exciting to like a global audience.
Of course.
But then other times, there are financial constraints. So Hungaroring is a financial constraint. Right. Like what I wanted to do with the film was, the movie doesn't have science fiction spectacle. It doesn't have like these massive sci-fi concepts. So one thing that I felt like we could lean into was this feeling of like it being very global and international.
Right.
So I pushed very hard to make sure we went to Dubai and Tokyo and Nürburgring and Slovakia and Austria and like everywhere else. So I pushed super hard to do that.
And that must have been a big fight, because
it is a fight.
Producers are just,
yeah. You're pushing the outer limits of the budget, right?
Well, because they're like, what's the difference? Right?
I mean, the way to think of it is producers, like theoretically, directors and producers both care about the movie, and directors are weighted more to the creative elements of the film.
Caring about the audience.
Yeah, and the producers are weighted more towards keeping it financially on the rails. And it's always a tug of war.
Right.
So the example that you give is, I lost the battle to be able to get to Silverstone.
Yeah.
I won the battle with many of the other tracks. So that's I'm just identifying the two different kinds of issues that you might run into, and it's like sometimes you want to do things, but you've actually just pushed the budget to the point it broke.
And again, my point is the people that would notice is such a small percentage of the people that will be watching.
But
the
you
film.
want it, you want it to be as authentic as possible. I mean, we also couldn't shoot at Le Mans. I don't know if any film was ever shot at Le Mans other than Steve McQueen.
Well, I know. Ford versus Ferrari, Le Mans was like part in Georgia, part. I mean,
it's the same as this movie.
It was insane.
For us, it was made up of 4 tracks. I mean, one part of Le Mans for us was an ex-Soviet military base.
Okay.
I mean, that's so. But you try the best you can, and for example,
you did great. I was just at Le Mans. I just saw the movie. It looked great. Yeah.
The pits look really good.
Yeah.
Some of the turns obviously are not the same, and but you do the best you can.
Right. No, it was cool, and the one, I mean, I've actually filmed on the Nürburgring, and so I was impressed that, because the way they do
it's 100% real.
Yeah. But like the part where Jan and David Harbour's character.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Jack.
Jack. Where they park on
Yeah.
that corner. Because the way we pay for it, just so you know, it's like 1,500 euros for 15 minutes. And I'm
Yeah.
like, you guys must have been out there for a day doing that or more.
Yeah.
So that's impressive that you won
Yeah,
that
no,
fight.
we
Because
yeah,
that
and
could have been
some-
a corner anywhere.
And some of the, yeah, but it couldn't be though.
No,
it had.
right,
I mean,
exactly.
for the fabric of the movie, we had to be there.
Yeah, but I was like, oh, I've been there. I've stood
Yeah.
there. I know where they are.
Yeah. Flugplatz.
Yeah.
But you know, the thing is, by the way, also that GT3 RS is pretty sweet.
Yes.
It's a very cool car.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the first time where I was really like, oh, this isn't 2011.
No,
They're
yeah.
contemporary
Yeah.
because the cars were.
A whole bunch of weird stuff would have happened if it was time authentic. And I mean, that's an example of, you know, category A of
Yeah.
like making a creative call.
Right.
That's an example of that, where it's like, well, why wouldn't I just have newer cars? Why wouldn't the graphics in GT be newer? Why wouldn't it all be newer?
Totally.
So
because it doesn't affect the.
Yeah,
you're not
it
making
makes
a
no
documentary.
difference. Yeah, to the
you know?
to
Yeah.
the story.
You're making a movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
And people, I mean, you know, look, we could hammer this point, but like, you know, Herzog has talked about that forever, where, you know, like, I don't know,
Werner Herzog.
yeah, Little Dieter Needs to Fly. He had the guy doing a bunch of weird OCD behavior that he faked because he's like, I'm not making a documentary. Even though it's a documentary, he's like, you know, it's the ecstatic truth versus the actual truth.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's
Yeah,
and
it's
that-
an impression.
yeah, and that was, I mean, yeah, that car parked on that corner was a very cool scene.
Yeah.
And this is, yeah. Anyways,
It's an emotionally
Yeah.
powerful scene.
yeah, for sure. And that was that true-ish to life. Like there was this moment
That didn't happen in real life. At that corner, that
because you
circuit,
can't get the
'cause-
Nürburgring.
Exactly. But the
gotta-
next day, coming from where I was in hospital in Germany to go to do that.
Yeah.
But,
I
it
mean,
did happen.
there was a pep talk.
Yeah, it did happen maybe a few days later in Wales, actually at Pembrey, with a race team I was racing for that year as well. So it would have been, I was doing GP3, so it would have been Carlin, team I was racing for back then, and similar situation where I need to get back in the car.
Yeah.
I need to get back in the car because of I don't know what I've already come to a decision that I want to do this, continue to do this. However, I still need to be strapped in. I still need to get my helmet on. I still need to feel like in that space where you are. It's claustrophobic, and I didn't know what the effects would be. I need to get in the car as soon as possible just to see if there is anything.
If you can still do it.
If you're
Yes.
if you're lost and listening, just I know a little bit more about this story than maybe somebody who's coming as blind. There's a moment in Jan's life story that's also depicted in the movie where a horrific accident happens, and we're talking about sort of the after effects and the getting back in the car moment there. So we'll just leave it at that for those of you.
But
who
it makes for
intend to watch
great
the movie.
drama.
Right.
I mean, it was
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's his life story was sort of written in this 3-act structure that was very conducive to making a film. But you have to be super respectful. I mean, I tried to not push Jan on that. Obviously, I mean, it's a very personal thing for him.
Sure.
And you know what I tried to do was just keep it as authentic as possible to the video footage that existed, and just try to be honest about it and just let it play out. So you know, I've never made a biographical film before, and I think any biography probably is going to have some very personal, difficult stuff for whoever the person it's based on is going to be portrayed in the film.
But I thought it rang true because it was a really wonderful human moment, but also I know race car drivers where they are able to just go do it again. And that's a big part, I think, of being a race car driver. Like, I spent a lot of time with Randy Popst. I remember one time I was sitting in the passenger seat and he crashed real good.
Yeah.
And then 10 years later, I was like, remember that? He goes, what crash? I'm like, no, dude, the BMW. We
really?
flew 300 feet off the track. He's like, no, we didn't. I'm like,
that's
we
awesome.
did. I'm
Yeah.
like,
That's different though. Like
No,
that
but
sounds
no-
like he was
No, but what I'm saying
like
is
he's trying to
the
kill you.
ability to like put it out of mind.
Yeah.
And
I don't feel like that's what's happened with Jan though.
Like it's different with this because of what happened.
Yeah.
Of, who was involved.
Sure.
Someone lost their life. So, for me, I can't speak for all racing drivers, but for me, as long as I know what happened when something happens and what I could have done differently, I can then move on. I don't forget, because if you forget, if you just ignore it and think like it didn't happen, and that same thing happens again, then you're in trouble because then you don't know how to fix it.
Fair point, but I've had like, there's this Road Angeles Crest here where I drive, usually once a week, and but now, I mean, it's maybe old age, but I'm like, oh yeah, that's where that guy flipped, that's where so and so died, that's where I hit the deer, that's where the motorcycle went off. You know what I mean? Like I just see ghosts as I drive up. But I think race car drivers are able to like you know what I mean? It's
Well,
like,
it's my
there's also-
purpose. It's for me, racing cars is my purpose. So there's
Right.
no when I get into a car,
Yeah,
it's
you're not
not
gonna
like
stop.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not like I'm fearful. But I have fear, but it's not like what if a wheel comes off now? You don't.
yeah, see, I have
It's
that.
not
I'm
that.
always like, I know tires
Mechanical
pop. Yeah.
failure.
That's-
But there's also an element with that crash though that is, like, I don't want to say it's unfair to you, but there's an element of bizarre physics and aerodynamics that is like it's not a normal crash. It's a very unusual situation, And like him saying like, what can I have done different? There's an element of chaos in that is like an uncontrollable element that I think is to some degree like unfair to the driver.
Right. And they've changed the track since then.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Goes to show.
yeah, and that it's kind of like what you're saying with Eau Rouge, like, sometimes it's, it's chaos plus not the most ideal design for,
Yeah.
Well, it just certainly made me. I've come off the back of that, say with my family, and we'd always say to each other now before we leave to do something or a phone call, it's like we always say I love you more just off the back of that.
Good.
I certainly become much more aware of how fragile life is. Fear has stayed the same. There's always fear, but it's not like it's got more, but I'm just aware of how mortal we are. But I still love what I do, and I'll still push a car 100% all the time, every lap, as long as I
That's the
live.
difference
So-
between a pro and a people that like to drive fast.
So pretty heavy.
The difference between the two of us.
yeah.
Heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Let's go.
No, again, it is not just a video game movie. Like it's a really there's a depth. I just was not expecting it.
Yeah. That's a good sign.
I really was. I went in like I literally in the elevator up like there's no way this is going to be good. And I found
I'm going to
myself,
put that on the poster.
Yeah,
Like literally,
I mean-
there's no way it's going to be good. in
No,
No, I
quotes,
said
Johnny.
that to Alana Shar. I literally said
I'm going to call the marketing department right now.
Cut it off. Okay. So let's talk about some fun stuff. Jesus.
No.
So Jan, you were also a producer and also stunt driver, right?
Not producer.
I thought
I'm
some said producer.
I was a creative consultant.
Creative
my
consultant.
title is.
Okay.
And
But
a
you
stunt
did all
driver.
this.
You did
driving.
some of the stunt driving
I
for
feel
your.
like you may be credited as an exec producer, dude.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
I don't know. I could be wrong. Like
Let's
the
check it out.
credits kept changing, but
But stunt driver.
stunt driver.
Okay,
so
so
yes.
tell us who was absolute crap at driving. Who did like you guys? Oh my god, the actors. Like just put them on blast.
Well, I can give
awesome.
you a question. So there was, I think, over 25 stunt drivers
Okay.
on the movie.
Sounds like
Some
you needed
from-
it, right? Jeez. I'm just kidding. Like,
Some from America, some from the UK, some from Hungary, and during those days, we had none of us crashed
That's
at
good.
all. None of the stunt guys.
actually pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's because we're going, you
Wheel
want
to
us to go
wheel.
quick, we're not loving it, but there was a shunt, but it wasn't to do with the stunt drivers. It was to do with one of the actors. Would you
it
like
Amelia?
to guess?
Was it Amelia?
Who,
no.
have a guess. Who do you think?
You just said
wrote the
Amelia because we have had Amelia here on the podcast and we know her
award?
well.
It wasn't Amelia. No.
Okay, Amelia Hartford.
Thank God.
She's our buddy.
can drive.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
she's pretty
great.
good. Yeah.
I don't know who else.
It was a Harbour.
It wasn't Harbour.
I don't know.
Come on.
Orlando Bloom.
Yes.
Who, by the way, he's so good in this movie. We haven't even mentioned like one of the biggest stars in the world. He is a good little weasel.
But yeah, so
okay, that's great.
There was some time that we had down. I think.
Are you going to get in trouble for outing him? This is great. So
Well,
Orlando
mate,
Bloom.
we-
you're
Yeah,
not-
Jan started it. Like let me just, if there's a legal disclaimer or something I could sign that Jan began the discussion.
Yes, we have tape. We
Well-
have tape. Yeah, and video.
As he's walking towards me with his helmet, there was some downtime.
Let me give the backstory to this moment, and then
Yes,
Jan
yes,
can
yes.
continue. The backstory is Orlando, from the moment he signed on, he was like, I got to drive the car in the movie. And I was like, but dude, it's Jan's story. And he's like, I just, because he's really into cars as well. He's like, I got to drive a car. I got to drive the car.
Get him on the podcast.
So they eventually, yeah, you guys should put him on here. Eventually, I was like, let me write a post-credit scene with
Okay.
you with the car. Okay. So he's like, okay, awesome, done. So because that's how much he wanted to be in the car somehow in the movie, and it's structurally in the design of the story, it made no sense. So it had to be like a post-credit thing. So I wrote the scene. He was down for it. Well, he was enthusiastic about it. And then the producers are like, the stunt department has to certify him, obviously, right? Because like everything is safety first.
Yes.
And there's insurance, yeah.
So I'm like, okay, cool. So then I go off to go set up another shot, and then he walks away with the stunt department, which is where Jann picks up.
Okay.
So he's walking towards me. He's got his race suit on, and he's got a helmet in his hand. And he said, I'll show you how it's done. Just casually passing a comment. And I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah.
What are you guys driving at this point in the
It's
movie?
GTR Nismos, but they have the diff taken out the front axle, so they're rear-wheel drive only. And a GTR road car with rear-wheel drive, it's not...
Sure.
It has no ABS.
It's not balanced to do that either.
No,
Yeah,
not at all.
Yeah, it's a track car. Yeah.
So we use those as during the GT Academy scenes, and they drift like crazy. And Hungaroring at that point of the day was quite damp, and it was quite damp. So one of the other instructors he's with as well.
Don't give him excuses.
The instructor that he was with, I love, Nicky Falconer.
Hang on real quick. Bloom is British, yeah? I mean,
Yeah.
so they can drive in the rain. Every British person I've ever met.
Good counterpoint.
Rain is not an issue.
We're giving him excuses, and you're taking
I
him
think
away.
Orlando could actually probably be a good driver. It was just the way that it played out.
Just savaging him.
He's very... No, he's got great car taste. You know, he has you show me a week later, he's 911 touring, he's ordered fantastic manual. Great. Anyway, he says that comment. I'm like, yeah, righto, nice one. Enjoy your time on circuit. 15 minutes goes by, and then I see a truck come through the pit lane with a tarpaulin with a car, like a GTR, and I'm like, just thinking, okay, cool. I'm getting ready to go out and do some stunts because we're finished now. And Steve Kelso, the stunt coordinator, says, "Oh, there's some cones out at turn 5." I'm like, why? He's like, because Orlando put the car on the wall. And he said it so casually. I was like, what? Orlando put the car on the wall.
My the version of that to me was the shot that I said I went to go set up. I was just dealing with cameras with a parked car with a bunch of crew. And all the radios, the crew just start going. It's like it sounds like, it's like Irene in Black Hawk Down, where it's just like, and people are like running. And then Matt Hirsch, the producer, comes out and he's like sort of ashen white. And he's like, Orlando crashed. And I was like, holy shit. And then the flatbed, like Jann saying, like pulls up with this smashed GTR.
Okay, so
and Orlando
I
also
like
was
how
in
they
the
covered it, by
passenger
the way.
seat. Like a normal crash, how the tow truck driver drives you.
Yeah. Right? He's not going to walk. Yeah.
So how bad's the car? Like it's like just completely taken out? Like
No. It wasn't written off. It was like sort of, I don't remember if it was the left or right, but it was the front wheels, quarter. The front quarter was crushed in.
Okay. So under brakes.
Nicky Falconer pulled the handbrake because Falconer told me that he's Jeremy Clarkson's stunt double.
Yeah.
And
Jeremy Clarkson has a stunt double?
Yes.
You may have to edit that part out.
No, it's common knowledge.
Okay,
Yeah. I know Ben Collins pretty well. So he had an instructor in the car with him.
And Nicky told me he pulled the handbrake, but again, like, I'm not like I'm a fan of Orlando. Like who knows what happened?
But this is trying to he was trying to certify to drive for the
the scene, which obviously didn't happen. The scene was then kiboshed.
No, but I like that he said to you, like, let me show you how it's done. And
that's why I mention it,
that's
because
the best.
if
That's
you just
the
did
best.
it, I'd be like, oh, that's just unfortunate. But he said, I'll show you how it's done.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, cool.
That's
Orlando
fantastic.
also filmed his own iPhone footage after the crash, which I need to get my hands on. Just like
Yeah. Yeah,
okay,
I just
and
wanna
if
see it.
Orlando, if you end up listening to this podcast,
Yeah,
we would
I'm
welcome
sure.
we sincerely welcome you on to defend yourself.
He's
But,
a legit car lover. Like
feel like-
he would fully be on. I
Okay,
think.
we are impugning your character, perhaps unfairly, but you're welcome to join us. And
Dude, if you brag and then crash immediately, that's the best. I love that.
All right.
That's fantastic.
So, is there anything we missed in terms of talking about the movie? What other people should? You mentioned Easter eggs. Are there some Easter eggs in this that people like?
There's one very bizarre element to the film that. How well did you know Dave Perel before the movie? Did you know him?
Quite well, yeah.
Who's
So
Dave Perel?
this is kind of interesting. Like my brother who lives in South Africa still, he had friends in Johannesburg. I think he's like about 5 or 6 years younger than me, and he had friends over when I probably was about I was probably 15 or 16, and one of my younger brother's friends was I was actually sketching. I was doing these like science fiction sketches as a kind of 16-year-old, and he asked me if he could keep one of them. And I remember this. He was like, "I really like this drawing. Can I have it?" This is like a 10-year-old asking me for it, and I was like, "Sure, dude. Here, have this."
Right.
And that was in Joburg in like probably like '96, and then I get this email from my stepmom at the beginning of prep for Gran Turismo, and she's like, "Hey, one of Kelvin's friends asked for your email. Do you mind if I pass it on to him?" And I was like, "That's okay, sure." So I got this email from David Perel, and he's like, "Do you remember giving me this sci-fi drawing when you know in your dad's house?" And I was like, "I vaguely remember this, but like, what's going on? Why are you emailing me?" And he's like, "I own a sim racing school, and I raced Le Mans." And he's like, "I think that I should be your on-set realism consultant."
Oh.
And we were looking for one as well because we always thought that Jann would be like very story-centric. It would be about his life, you know. So I was speaking to other Le Mans races that had done Le Mans that would just be on set 24/7 because I don't think we knew how long Jann was going to be on set with us. And so we, I mean, how bizarre is that as a way for David to join the production?
Tiny world, yeah.
Super small. And he moved from Cape Town. He went from Joburg to Cape Town, and then he went from Cape Town to London to pursue a career in racing. And so he was on set every day. And then Jann ended up having the same amount of time on set and awesomely began driving, you know, stunt doubling his own car.
Yeah.
So Perel often was with me at the monitors talking about the realism of like even how wheel changes happen or, you know, how races would do X, Y, or Z or whatever it might be. And then Jann would do that as well, but I would also have an additional layer with Jann where it was about him specifically, obviously. But yeah, it was pretty. That's not an Easter egg in terms of GT, but it's a very strange history for someone to be involved with the film, and he was unbelievably helpful.
Huh. Okay.
I mean, it was for the movie. Also, three hats, of course. My name, gaming industry, Gran Turismo, and also racing drivers. And you have those people in the racing industry where they know everything about the rules, so how many people are allowed on a car to do a pitch stop change, mechanic-wise, all that kind of stuff. And David was the man for that, or anything that wasn't or that needed to be authentic for the sake for motorsport. He was the guy, and he was brilliant. He was absolutely awesome. So it was great that he was
your dad's car, which in the movie was a Corrado, right?
Yes.
Was that an Easter egg, or did your dad actually have a Corrado?
No,
I chose that very specifically. But I did check with you though.
Yeah. But the Corrado was a much better. My dad's only had one cool car.
What was it?
A Peugeot 309 GTI.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Why'd you pick a Corrado?
Because to me it meant something. Like when I was like, I would imagine
I noticed
a cooler father. Yeah, no, I know. No, there were, getting some of the cars in Eastern Europe was a bit difficult.
Okay.
But I was very specific about pretty much every single car that you see in the movie.
Was the Cardiff scenes that was filmed in
Hungary?
In Hungary?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you something sort of rudely. So you were very specific about the cars. I assume this was just like one giant long Nissan commercial. So you're saying there's other cars in this other than
Yeah. No, there are definitely other cars. I mean, from picking the GT3 cars as well, right? Because most of the film is about GT3 racing, and
bad guy's a Lamborghini.
like
yeah,
that.
it's a Huracan.
Gold.
It's actually pretty sweet. Yeah,
it is really sweet. Yeah.
Doubling down on the gold was a good move.
It was good. Yeah.
But no, like I wanted to sort of pepper scenes with, like, I'll give you an example. The intro to the movie, the way that it starts, is Polyphony, which is the real life game creator that made GT, testing cars on tracks. And I spoke to Kazunori about this, and it's like the way that he described it was they benchmark, say, 1 out of 10 cars they take on tracks to actually legitimately feel them. And once the parameters physically are set for that car, they can extrapolate it to another car and dial the settings up or down, right? So they actually physically benchmark some of them. So I could have done anything I wanted there, and I wanted a Generation 1 NSX and a 2005 Ford GT. So it's like this. It's this kind of thing.
Okay.
And sometimes I won. In that case, I won. We got one car was from Hungary and one car was from Austria. There were actually 2 NSXs. They were both Austrian. And then like a super small scene would be David Harbour walking out of the restaurant when he decides to quit the villain team, and join the Nissan Academy team. I put a 1991 Diablo behind him.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah, I remember. I was like, there was a cool car.
And it's darkly lit as well on purpose. It's like that kind of thing. So I wanted to just pepper stuff everywhere throughout the movie that.
Okay.
But And the vehicle team in Hungary, it's like they probably got so sick of me because like every day I'd be like, we kept expanding outside of Hungary further and further, and I was like, I wanted an LFA in it. I wanted to be testing an LFA downstairs in Polyphony for sound, just like
Lexus LFA, which you still own.
No, I don't own it anymore. Like a moron, I sold it. It like hurts my heart.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about
It's gone. But
And your net worth, you should have kept that.
I know.
Which has a very, very
V10,
lovely
baby.
V10.
I know.
5 liter revs.
Naturally
So
aspirated.
awesome.
Revs. Yeah.
But you know, like I wanted a 190 Evo Mercedes-Benz. Like that's a kind of a weird car to want, but we managed to get one of those. So that scene where they're testing the cars, it's like I wanted that. I wanted an R34 GTR that we did have in there.
I love it. So this is my clever way of asking you to sell it to car fans in general, because the assumption is if you've heard anything about GT Academy or PlayStation, you know Nissan plays really heavily within this theme. But this now this is for all car lovers. You're going to see a bunch of stuff. Except,
But also,
doesn't sound like you have a lot
who
of
doesn't love GTRs? I mean,
You don't have a lot of
even if it was
American-
only GTRs, like that's cool.
Yeah.
You know.
No, it definitely expands beyond the GTR for sure, and a lot of that, I think you feel a lot of that in the race scenes, which are GT3 cars. But the GT3 Ferrari 488 is I mean, I love that car. I love the Audi R8 GT3, which he's competing against. The actual GT3 is really cool.
Yeah, and by the way, for anyone who is thinking it's like an infomercial for either Sony or Nissan, it's not. I mean, it's a
That was me projecting.
yeah. No, it's and again, I sort of thought it would be that too. And like buy a PlayStation. Never meant nothing like that's ever mentioned. It's
Racing naturally has a ton of product placement in it, and it's like I feel like it would be unfortunate for the audience to watch it and think we were advertising something. Every film that I've done, I mean, I haven't made that many movies, but as I get more experience, I realize that product placement has essentially failed me every single time. Right? Like it's the opposite of what people think. People think you put like Coca-Cola here on the table and they give you like $80 million.
Right.
It's like
that's what I think.
The way it actually plays out is creatively you go, hey, I think it would make it more realistic if we had Coca-Cola on the table here. Can you try and get it? Nah, they're not interested.
Right.
Really? Oh, really? Sometimes you end up paying them.
Right.
So most of the time you're actually like paying the brand to like have it in the film. And then when brands come forward and they're like, we want to be in the movie, you don't want them. Because it doesn't make sense for the film, right? And it's like they're trying to force their way in. This one, we had a few brands that were very helpful that made a lot of sense, like Michelin, Brembo brakes, interestingly.
which makes sense.
And Nissan. Nissan was a really good partner.
It all makes sense.
But generally speaking, it's not how it plays out. And I felt like what I wanted the photography to look like was super realistic and grounded, and never in digital intermediate or DI in film is sort of like your colorization process, right? Like when you once the movie's done, you sit
color correction.
you color correct the whole movie.
Yeah.
And I wanted to basically I wanted the audience to not be aware that any color manipulation had happened. In other words, what the cameras rolled on was authentic to what the audience would see. And my thinking was that the production design of the movie would have saturation in it naturally, like we just spoke about the gold Lamborghini Huracan, because racing is colorful, right? And the brand placement was the same thing. It's like it's part of the fabric of racing.
I mean, just to tie it together, like you were saying Michelin. I was just at Le Mans, got down in the pits, and like when there's a pit stop, one of the 5 people that can walk out to the cars is a Michelin guy who looks at the tires to make sure everything's okay.
Yeah.
Like he's literally in a fire suit with a helmet.
Yeah.
It's a Michelin guy. Like there's nothing more authentic to Le Mans than a Michelin dude.
Totally.
The Michelin. So yeah, that is good product placement. So, and I always did think it was they handed you $80 million for the Coca-Cola.
Yeah, no, that's like never happened to me, and I've always been crucified for it. It's so irritating. I should do like a medieval film or something, So the urge to put Nike on like the knight riding his horse is just obliterated. So I don't have to deal with this anymore.
Right. They'd still probably suggested that. Hey, Nike.
Like in Chappie, I put a bunch of PlayStations that were networked together in order for him to build this model of consciousness, and I took that from the 2003 invasion of Iraq, where Hussein was stockpiling PlayStations. He was stockpiling like PS3s or something, or PS2s, because they were daisy chaining them into supercomputers.
Oh, really?
Right? And it's like, that's where, so then people are like, it's product placement for PlayStation. It's like, it's not where the idea comes from. So I want to be...
But you can't explain.
No, you can never explain it. And it's like, the film has to speak for itself. And yeah, I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. I love. I mean, I love filmmaking. So
Yeah.
it's fascinating to hear all that stuff. And again, I think people really do think it's just like they're handing you a check.
Yeah, it would be awesome. That would be amazing.
So, is there anything we missed in terms of getting butts and seats for you guys for this? Because I do want to move on and talk about some fun questions about you guys personally and how you got here, just in general. Like anything else?
I don't think so, unless.
Well, David Harbour. We should talk about him for 2 seconds because again, like. Man, was he good? Like,
Yeah.
Man, did he take this serious?
People would know the name if you were a big fan of Stranger Things.
Yeah.
For he was for much of the series, he was the sheriff protagonist.
Hopper,
in there. Yep.
Yeah,
Like-
he was awesome on multiple levels. I mean, he was very obviously the only thing ultimately that matters is the performance.
Yeah,
right at the end of the day.
course.
But he was also very cool to work with as well, which is like an added bonus. But he's just a very thoughtful and precise actor that would do a lot of thinking about how he was going to portray the character.
Right.
And did exactly what we had discussed. Every time the cameras would roll, he would just deliver precisely what.
Well, yeah. So what's interesting is that the story is ostensibly about Jann's character, but that one you sort of like he's going to be a race car driver and hopefully win. Whereas like the Harbour character really had the most like development. Like he's kind of this like. Angry
I think
has-been.
both of them do, but the thing is that that Jann will.
Yeah,
where I think
that's
that
what
you're
was-
surprised by, Harbour is that there's a real arc to him that maybe you're not anticipating.
And you kind of fall in love with him by the end of the film. It's like,
Yeah.
this guy's cool,
Yeah.
where he's really this prickly, washed up jerk at the intro.
Do you see yourself in him, Johnny?
No, I'm still a washed up jerk.
Is there some redemption?
So he really to me stood out. I was like, oh wow, because he's the guy from Stranger Things.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
And-
your summary, I think, of saying how just god awful the movie would be in the elevator on the way up is in a sense, it's kind of good news because the way that I always thought of Gran Turismo was people would probably go into it with an assumption that it's going to be thin as a video game film,
Super thin,
right?
yeah.
And to me, there was two elements that would make it emotional. The one place would be because his dad. I love Jaimin Hunsu, by the way.
Amazing! I didn't.
Jaimin's like one of my favorite actors.
The dad was amazing.
The
hug.
Exactly.
I mean, come on.
So Jann and his father, and then Jann and his surrogate father.
Right.
This sort of emotional triangle, I felt like that could actually be quite emotional for the audience. And the second thing is this reason that I signed on to the movie at all, which is this kind of uplifting sports drama, Rocky-esque feeling that at the end of the film you have this real sense of accomplishment after what he's gone through. And the summary basically is I think the movie might be more emotional than people are anticipating.
Way more. I mean, look,
Did you cry?
I cried like twice, I think. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a good sign.
I'm a crier, but I mean, again, not to name other bad video game movies, but I really thought it was just that.
Yeah.
And I knew, all right, these guys are coming in.
Enough. We heard it. All right, come on.
No, I'll go see the movie. Didn't it was at night.
At gunpoint, you're going to watch it.
I'm really glad I saw it, and I've been telling people like they actually made a really good movie.
What about from a car perspective?
Again, it's racing. I find it inherently interesting.
Yeah.
There's so many bad racing movies. Like it's like I got to go faster. Shift. Yeah. I mean, duh,
Or Fast and Furious.
Yeah. Well,
Doesn't make any sense.
No, I thought it was great in terms of that, and I thought the racing was really cool. I mean, I really liked just from a storytelling point of view where like the car assembled around the sim rig. I thought that was a great way to like tie. Again, what's sitting in your bedroom playing video games.
Yeah, that's what we imagine, right?
I never did, but I guess that's what you were going through.
Did you spend a lot on sound design, like accuracy, like
Massively.
making sure that
Massively.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
Sound design was like an absolutely huge part of making the film from the first day.
Good.
I mean,
That's where the purists really come out of the woodwork. Like, oh, that's not what a V6 sounds
literally
like.
every single car was recorded accurately and also mixed correctly. Like
It's also a nod to Kazunori. Kazunori Yamauchi, by the way,
Yeah, we
founder
kind of breezed over
of
Kazunori, yeah.
PlayStation, Gran Turismo, the whole franchise, and he is obsessed with those kind of details.
He told me something amazing the other day. This is like my favorite workaholic story I've ever heard in my life.
Oh, we got Kazunori story. Let's compare notes.
Okay, so he told me that Polyphony is based in Tokyo. He lives in Tokyo.
Yep.
Okay. He lives in the same city that he works in. Presumably, he just drives or takes the train 20 minutes and goes to Polyphony. Okay. For GT1 and 2, he didn't go home except for twice in 14 months.
Slept under the desk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said that he actually had a room in there. And his wife would bring him clothes, so changes of clothes.
His game developers would all camp out apparently in their little cubicles.
Yeah.
And I mean, I got a terrible story, but because he's been doing this for so long, he would come out. He does this whole thing at the SEMA Awards, the aftermarket show, where one of the winning cars ends up in the game, and they digitize it. But one of the reasons he would go, this is also maybe off. Well, he would go to Vegas and he'd buy a lot of stuff that you can find in Vegas in certain stores in Vegas, to go back and give to his developers as incentives to keep working really hard. These things might be DVDs of
Oh, right. Yeah,
X-rated
which you can't
content.
get in Japan. Yeah.
Which was, I was like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's an interesting incentive.
It's a really good
Never
incentive.
heard of that before.
Yeah.
Well, the adult movies in Japan are a little different than what we can get here.
Right.
But they're
Especially
everywhere
at
in
the
Japan
time.
as well. They're
That's true.
everywhere.
That's true.
Oh, yeah,
Different.
Jan
though.
lived
They're
there.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're different.
Yeah, they're different, but they're
Certain parts are blurred.
yes.
Anyways,
imagination.
Back to the car guy thing.
I'm just gonna keep a backpack on set and like with
Yeah.
first AC or like sound departments, like bro, here, just take this DVD. Just
Get
excellent
inspired.
work there.
But I was at Le Mans in what, June? I was at Le Mans in June. I'm watching this movie in, I think, July is when I saw it. And I spent about 6 hours. It was amazing.
It was not a complete. The film wouldn't have been complete then.
Okay, then I saw it in early.
You saw like
No, you may have seen one with previs like CGI and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Because there was a journalist version of the film.
I saw it like 2 weeks ago.
Okay, maybe it was done. All right.
Okay, yeah. But like I'm sitting there, I'm like, that's what the pits at Le Mans look like.
Yeah.
And then the podium, I was like weirdly, coincidentally, where the camera was shooting you with the champagne. I was about that far back. That's how far we walked forward. I was on the right side, not on the left side. But it was like, oh, I know this angle. Like, so it looked very authentic to me. Yeah.
I was on set 8 days, and I did not know that structure was not meant to be there. Because I've raced at Hungaroring a few times.
Yeah.
But that structure of the podium was for the movie. But it took me 8 days to realize.
It was synthetic.
Yeah.
And the walls.
I did see one.
Yeah.
Do you want the one? There was one.
Well, there's a lot of major problems. Tell me what you noticed.
Here was the one there's an announcer's voice, and it's like, where's the most famous track in the entire world? Nürburgring Nordschleife, and they're showing the Südschleife.
Right.
And I was like, well, very few people know that there is a Südschleife.
I didn't know what the Südschleife is.
It's the GT track. The South track.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called the Südschleife. Yep. But that's the one where I was like, oh, but again, that like when I said I talked with Mangold about it, he's like, no, when you drag your wife to see a car movie, she's not gonna know what the Nordschleife is,
Yeah.
So that's
interesting. Yeah, because I actually thought the GP track was part of Nürburgring.
That's the Südschleife. It is,
but it's open. They connect them though.
When they do a race, then it becomes a 15-mile track, and it's the Südschleife plus the Nordschleife. Again, hyper geek stuff. I've been to the Nürburgring 24, so.
Yeah,
fuck this. I'm leaving.
Now he's mad.
But again, no one's gonna know. No one's gonna know. Just me.
Okay.
Well, I have a better one for you. The end.
Yeah.
So the end of Le Mans.
Yeah.
The end turn is the Hungaroring turn.
Right.
Which is not at all accurate. We built computer models of the way the chicanes work into the final turn of Le Mans. And because physically, I mean, as Jan knows, since he was a stunt driver in his own film, everything that you see is real. The racing is all real. So if we're faced with racing on a track that has turns that look nothing like the end of Le Mans, the only option that we have is to make it 100% CG.
Okay.
Right, which would break the realism of the film. So you enter this thing of authenticity but inauthentic looking images versus authentic looking images with a fake turn.
Right. Again, you're not making a documentary.
But you're trying. You're trying to make it as real as possible.
Couldn't have called up Kazunori and said, "Hey, can you give me some footage?" And then have that close the loop on having actual Gran Turismo footage sub in for reality at the end. No, it wouldn't have worked.
No, it doesn't look real. I mean,
Still doesn't look.
yeah, you've got to film it for it to look real. I mean, although we had an insane amount of VFX in the film, and the VFX supervisor has been to Le Mans personally 10 times.
Okay.
He's like
you
shot
did
his own
have an
footage.
insane because I mean,
Our
see,
goal
that-
was to hide the CG.
It's the only part where it's not hidden is when the effect of the car coming around the rig.
Yeah.
Everything else looked like practical.
No, that's the
racing.
point. I mean, we wanted to keep it as real as possible. But all of the pits are Hungaroring.
Yeah.
For Le Mans.
Yeah.
So that the pits at Hungaroring are 1 story high. So all of a sudden you're adding hundreds of thousands of spectators in every direction. They're all synthetic. Everything is synthetic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
But the people in the cars on the track are real. The actors in the cars.
So
Very cool.
one more, just a couple more questions of the movie that I want to ask at a high level, but I want to make sure Jann has a chance to. Any final thoughts on like big moments from the movie or this whole process? Are you exhausted? You're just you're.
I can talk about the difficult parts,
Okay.
which Hungaroring is quite smooth. We went to quite a few places. Went to Red Bull Ring, which was great. But the hardest part of the whole stunt driving
Slovakia.
was and then because we were shooting for Le Mans scenes there, and the track had recently been painted, the white lines, and we had these huge rain towers as well there. We had a load of auxiliary lighting around the circuit, which you could change to any random color, which was awesome. But when you're in a racing car, they don't take kindly to, large amounts of water. They just turn into boats.
Yeah.
Plus, the production wanted the headlights to be taped for the lighting, for the cameras. So we were driving around the track in the rain where the paint wasn't completely dry, so it was mixing with the water.
Oh.
We had no headlights, and our windscreen wipers were just not really clearing the
Smearing.
paint.
Yeah.
So we were going through these huge rain towers where it'd be damp around the circuit wholly, all around. But then there'll be a scene where we have to drive through some water. But there's a lot of water, and in a racing car, even at 50 miles an hour, we're going as quick as we can, and they just turn into a boat. And there's 15 of us, I think, on circuit at that point, and we're talking to each other, we're like, yo, this is
Is it
not
where it's
easy.
hydroplaning, where there's no steering, like that?
It's
that
no
kind of
steering,
boat?
but you can't see where we're going. I've never driven Slovakia as well. Not many of us have.
Yeah, it
at
doesn't
that
sound
point.
ideal.
And we were driving it the wrong way
Yeah.
as well.
Even better, yeah.
So it was like
And you're in the GT3 cars.
no, we're in the prototypes at that point.
Oh.
It was Le Mans in the movie is made up of 4 locations.
How did you get all those prototypes?
Ligier in France gave them to us. Big shout out to Ligier. They were actually super helpful.
And actual race.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
LMP2s.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had 3 LMP2s.
No kidding.
3, and then
With a team of mechanics as well, because they're very finicky, But
Yeah.
So-
it sounds really cheap.
yeah,
Yeah, it's low budget. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
cheap.
Okay.
But yeah, tough. But it was great. It was a real challenge.
So let's. I want to put the whole. Well, first, let me go back to Neill first. I want to ask you sort of a close-up question on it. So, when we talked about Kazunori, this is the title of the movie is like his baby. This is his franchise.
Yeah.
Did he get ultimate blessing on this thing? He had to sign off on this. Did he get to watch the first cut, the final cut? Does he get to veto stuff? Was there what's his level of involvement?
It wasn't that process. The process. PlayStation at some point had made the determination to make it a biographical movie about Jann.
Right.
Before I was on.
Right.
Which was a genius move.
Yeah.
And they had gone to a screenwriter who had made a really good biographical movie, which was American Sniper. This concept of take something that happened in real life, translate it into a Hollywood cinema, piece of cinema. And so when I came on board, what had happened was Kazunori had signed off on this idea of the story of Jann as a way into Gran Turismo as a movie.
Okay.
And other than that, my involvement with Polyphony was very limited. I wanted him to just like it and be happy with it, but it was a super limited thing. The only thing we really crossed over with was we wanted their 3D data for the tracks so that we could do pre-visualization, because it's very difficult to go out and scan like an 8 kilometer or 10 kilometer track and accurately scan it for all of the tracks we were going to do and then build previs. So it'd be easier to just get the models.
And they've done that like crazy.
They've done it, and they have almost every track. So that's where production and Polyphony kind of crossed over, and other than that, it was very limited. Like it's only now in marketing or the end of the film now where I've spent time with him and hung out with him,
and he likes it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he speaks obviously like you're speaking through a translator,
right?
So, but yes, I think he's done.
He's very
gracious. He seems totally happy, and
he's very gracious.
I did try as well to make a film that was not. That was authentic to motor racing. So it wasn't like we were trying to make something that would piss him off.
Right.
And because you set it up perfectly. Jan, this is like this happened quite a while ago. A lot of this, your entry into GT Academy, winning, going through the school, and then I think the rights, the movie idea was relatively soon after, right? So this has been at least almost a 7 to 10 year journey in terms of getting this thing done, and it's kind of been in production and out, or not? Do I have that wrong? Is this like a big burden off? You're like, oh, it's finally made, it's here, it's great, or no?
It's come at a really good time in my professional career, really.
Okay.
So I'm very blessed with that. I first heard of the movie in 2017. When there was talk of maybe there'd be a film based on my life. 2 years later, that's when it started to pick up steam. I started to meet people.
Which makes sense because Sony and PlayStation, I think, had worked on variations of the film prior to 2017 that were not Jann. Right, that were not biographical. They were what I would have said. Why are you making a Gran Turismo movie?
Exactly.
Which is a bunch of fictitious stuff.
Right,
and then at some point,
robbery.
Yeah, I think Carter Swan is one of the PlayStation producers, like him and Assad. And PlayStation was very cool in making this film. Like they were awesome to work with. But I think Carter's thing, I'm not sure. I think it's Carter who was like, why don't we make it? Let's go down the GT Academy road. And that's why Carter hired Jason, because suddenly it was biographical.
Right.
And that point was, roughly around, I think, 2018.
Well, Jann, so you're a young man born in 91. Somebody made a movie about your life. Like what does that hit you? What's that like? Like that's crazy.
It's surreal. It's exactly how people imagine. It's very mad.
He still has his life ahead of him.
I had a professor who told me, he's like, when I turned 40, I wrote my autobiography, and I was like, well, that's crazy at 40, because he was older than that now. But this is it was 91. You're 32.
31.
31. That's wild. Right?
It is. I'm very blessed.
Yeah.
Really, very fortunate to have this. It's like racing drivers were very selfish people, and
he's only been in Hollywood a few months.
I'm learning. I'm learning.
Well said. Yeah.
But when I first got into racing after the academy, those first 5 years, lots of things kind of sat in the background, not really being paid attention to. All I cared about was my performance in the racing car. My performance to be exponential. That's all I cared about. Everything else was secondary. I didn't care. Didn't care for any media. Didn't care for any, doing podcasts. I'll do it if somebody approached me, but it's not like I'll be doing it willingly. It's like all I cared was I was reading books about racing all the time. It was as if it was my Bible to read the MSA book about circuits everywhere across the world. That's all I was focused on. You get through life, years go by, and you start to realize things. You're not really developing in other areas. I'm very lucky that hyper focus. I guess that's why the movie was a thing based on me, because of what I achieved in those points. Not only the highs but the lows as well.
Yeah.
It's not like I imagined this was going to be a thing.
Right.
So I feel very lucky that I can. I don't think myself during those times, my life is so inspirational. It's fantastic. Wouldn't it be great if there was a movie based on it?
That's why it's kind of nice, actually, for me, is like he's such a nice guy that it's like, I feel happy about telling his story, because it's like you're not dealing with someone who's sort of very narcissistic, or, it'd be more difficult, I think, to make a film if the person felt like they deserved it.
Right.
Where it's like he does deserve it, but he's so very gracious about it.
Yeah.
So can you, because this is kind of where we started. GT Academy started in 2008. It finished in 2016, I believe. And back then, I mean, this podcast ostensibly is about the future of the car. I think back then, the concept was genius. Like, hey, let's see how these drivers of driving simulators, of not real racing, let's see how they perform in the real world. That was a very futuristic concept. Has it run its course? As far as I know, there's not any other kind of program.
Someone should do it again.
Is it still happening?
It surprises me. It's really shocking to me. It really pisses me off as well.
That it's not continuing?
Not because of. I understand why the Academy didn't continue along with Nissan. I get it. It's a big company. People come
move
in.
on.
Exactly.
People move on.
But the idea can happen.
Exactly. So it's surprising to me how I get messages all the time for years. Is there another way? Is there another GT Academy? Is there another? There isn't. There's been a spin-off which lasted a couple of years, but apart from that, there's been nothing, and it works. It works not only driver-wise, but financially. Every party involved made money. It was a commercial success. But it surprises me why there hasn't been another manufacturer, a big multinational company, hosting something similar.
But the tree has kind of gone a couple ways, right? One is that there are kids right now who are esports athletes with contracts that they're playing. I think the most popular one is Fortnite, or they're playing the shooter, and they're making money that way. But there's a esports series, GT World Series, World Championship, where you drive competitively. Only digitally, right?
F1 is the same,
right? Well, there's another series. There's the other thing, which is the reality piece, which is a lot of drivers train on simulators. But
all drivers train on simulators.
Yeah, it's like normal now.
But they don't. But there is no the crossover piece where you start in digital with the idea of racing in real life,
or like with Jann, like kids that are not racing karts and stuff. It's like giving them the opportunity.
Because there is a real, it's covered well in the film, but like there's a real financial hurdle.
Oh yeah.
To doing
this.
Yeah,
it seems like one of the most expensive, like cash heavy sports out there.
And you'll meet a lot of drivers, and I can think of friends where they're like, I really wanted to do F1, and my dad didn't have the money.
And
they might have had the talent.
Oh yeah.
What's that?
That and anything to do with horses, very expensive.
Yeah. But like one guy I'm thinking of in particular probably had the talent, and just couldn't get a ride.
Well, it's not. You say F1, but that's that's the pinnacle. Yeah. That is there's 20 cars in F1, 22.
Yeah, this year.
So what? 22
people
seats.
Yeah.
And there's hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people that want to.
Now there's millions.
Get that seat.
Yeah.
So, but even getting into MX-5 Miata racing, it's the cost to entry is ridiculous. I'm not foolish. I understand motorsport is expensive, but I'm surprised there hasn't been another competition similar to GTA.
No, it's a great point.
Because
it's a great point. Yeah.
There's so many things you can do that the process works. Esports is booming, which is great. Not only in motorsport as well, but you're an F1 team or a big motorsport team, and you have an option of doing a competition based on esports and paying your esports driver, or hosting a competition where they can use the game to eventually get a seat in your junior program. What's more easier? The esports. Right. What's more expensive? Doing it the reality way.
I think part of the problem is the people running the big organizations. They don't play games. They don't. They're just like.
Well, it's the risk. There's no. Imagine, 2008. Okay, let's get someone who's fast on the game, chuck them in a car just to see if it works. Like the health and safety forms you got to fill out.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing that it happened.
I'll tell you the other reason. It's pure marketing too. Like all of these big car companies, the agencies that direct them, they only really want to do original ideas. And this one is already done. And to be honest, the only other company that I could think of that would actually have the ability to do this would be like a Toyota. And because the connection, the number of performance cars they have, the current lineup, the global brand recognition, and then the connection with Gran Turismo, but Nissan already checked all those boxes, and so they can't do it.
I don't really agree with the original idea because, everybody's doing an esports team. Like, it's not the first team to do that. I don't know who that was, but everybody seems to do it now. It's the easier thing to do. The harder things to do is do a proper competition because you need to set in motion all the instructors, the place where you're going to host the event.
It's a big undertaking.
It's massive. It's absolutely giant. People really underestimate the scale
Why
of
do you
GT
guys
Academy.
have the bell?
Well, we haven't talked about it.
That's a great question.
That's a great
Neil.
question.
That's a
What is that
wonderful.
doing?
That's
Well,
a
why don't
wonderful
we
question.
we can talk about it. We'll talk about the bell in just a second. Okay, so fair points all around. Let's talk about you guys personally because we crossed the 90-minute mark and we're gonna run out of time here.
Yeah.
So because I know we covered you in 2015, I want to ask you some follow-up questions.
Meaning
on
we
your,
wrote an article about
on
Neil
you and your
this.
personal collection of cars.
Yeah.
But Jann, you've had a lot of success. You've run races. Your life is a movie. What was the moment you thought you had arrived? Maybe you got a big check from winning something. And what did you splurge it on? What did you? And I mean, from maybe perhaps an automotive perspective, did you buy a really cool car?
I'm a car guy
Yeah.
first and foremost. Most racing drivers aren't, but I'm a huge petrol head. There wasn't really a moment where I got a check when I was like, I'm going to buy it. I guess so, actually. It wasn't a big check, really. It was like, okay, now I have a little bit of money. And maybe it was 2013, I think it was. And
What kind of Porsche did you buy?
No, it wasn't that fancy. It wasn't that fancy. I love the V12 engine. I think it's the most beautiful thing in the world. I adore them. And at the time, the cheapest V12 I could buy in 2013 was a BMW 32 750i.
Nice.
So
Genius move.
That's a very good
I still
move.
have that car. It's in silver. It has sports seats. It's a short wheelbase one. It's not the IL. And that era of BMW I love as well. It's
Same.
in 1991. It's on a J-Wedge.
Do you know what car I'm trying to get from that era? The 850.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice.
yeah.
Love that car.
Beautiful car.
Those are coming way up in value. There was a
Dude,
time,
it's the 90s thing. It's
Yeah.
like, because all of a sudden the 90s are like the collectible cars now, like the cars that I was obsessed with when I was a teenager.
There was a time at the Northern California BMW Club, the Northern California 8 Series Club
Yeah.
disbanded
Yeah.
because the price of those cars dropped to about $1,000 for like an 840.
Yeah.
And the wrong element was now trying to join the club.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So, but now those are, 850 CSI is like,
Yeah.
well,
Incredible. They're
yeah.
just so beautiful, though. Like the design.
Amazing.
Is just like stunning. I love that era.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
Even to this day, they look fantastic. I recently watched on the flight over here yesterday Ronin. I'd never seen it before.
Oh, shit.
What?
Never
Really?
seen
The
Ronin
best.
before. I've
What?
seen parts of it. Of course, the
probably
chase.
the greatest
BMW
car movie ever
M5.
made.
Yeah, but it's absolutely
M5, Audi S8,
stunning. But an
6.9.
E32 is in there as well. 735i.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. And a 456, which was my third car, which I have. And I was like, it's the exact same color as my car. I took a photograph. I was like, that's
Where is that
weird.
in? I don't remember that in Ronin.
Yeah, it's in the Nice scene.
Oh,
As they
yeah,
walk into
yeah,
the
yeah.
hotel, there's
Yeah.
a blue one that
Yeah,
pulls
yeah.
up.
Very, very quick. Yeah, I was like, I don't remember
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hang on.
But
hang
the
on, hang on.
6.9 with the bazooka. I mean, come on.
So you have a 7 Series V12.
750.
750i. Your second car is because you skipped over that. What was the second car you got?
It was a 456 GT Ferrari.
Ferrari, yeah. That's a nice car.
Okay. Wait, what was
Another V12.
You said
Yes.
you said that was the third car you bought.
Yeah. So
What's the second one?
The first car. So the second car is the BMW, is the E32. My first car is a 318 IS E30.
Okay.
So you're quite a BMW fan.
Yeah, I just that era. That this just stunning. I loved like the old E23
Yeah.
6 Series. That era of the shark nose and the narrow grills. It's stunning. Round
318
headlights.
Is it E30?
E30, yes.
yeah.
E30.
I'm trying at the moment to buy an E36 Euro spec M3. Which
Yeah.
is, I mean, so when you were asking Jann about like getting a cash payment and then going out and buying something, I started directing commercials in order to buy an E36 M3 because as a teenager I was obsessed with that car, and I bought one. Which then after a couple of years, my brother wrapped around a pole in West Vancouver.
Perfect, yeah.
And then also tried to bullshit his way out of it as well. Like he was like, was there something wrong with the car when you
Oh,
lived it?"
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like that kind of thing. It's very unlike his personality, but I still mock him to this day.
Yeah, but that's how a lot of E36s in the hands of young men wound up, is wrapped around something. Yeah.
But the thing is that at the time, because I wasn't like well versed enough, I didn't understand the difference between the US spec and the European one.
20
Because they're
horsepower.
80 horsepower.
Was it 80 horsepower? Was it
Yeah.
that much? Wow, okay.
Yeah, no, it's 240 for the domestic one, and the final 3.2 liter 6-speed is a 321 horsepower.
Was
car.
it that much? Wow,
Yeah.
crazy. Okay.
I'm just obsessed with that car.
I
But
mean,
they're hard to find.
I
though.
know guys. If you want to talk crazy classic BMW, I know people
in America. I literally found one in LA and one in New York, and they're both way over like 150,000 kilometers.
Yeah.
That's how rare they are.
We will talk after this podcast. I have a friend who just sort of like every week buys a new BMW, so I'll help you out.
And they're starting to get imported.
Oh yeah. No, he buys them from Germany.
Yeah.
Puts them on an airplane, flies them out, and
Very cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was your first, because that was the same question to you. First splurge.
That was exactly what it was. It was like I basically did a commercial.
Which commercial was it? Was it the Adidas one? I looked you up a little bit. You did an Adidas.
I did. Yeah, no, it wasn't Adidas. That didn't pay enough. I did. No, it was. Ironically, it was an ad for Citroen.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was
great cars. Well, it used to be great cars.
Yeah. I don't really. In South Africa, we didn't. I have this sort of like car cultural black hole pre 1997 with American cars because we had literally none in South Africa.
Sure.
Like when I got to North America, there was a whole bunch of stuff I was exposed to that blew my mind, both in terms of automotive culture, but also just even media. Like a lot of anime and stuff that I wasn't exposed to even as an 18-year-old. But you remember the Cadillac STS?
Yes.
Like the North Star engine.
Seville touring sedan, STS.
Like that car blew my mind. I'd never
Really?
seen anything like that before. And I was like, it looked like some sort of parallel universe. It was like a sci-fi parallel universe to the cars that I knew.
Right. You know what you should get, speaking of South African BMWs, these...
333i?
No, the 735 Turbo. It was South Africa only. I think it was an E30.
BMW South Africa did a bunch of interesting stuff. But have you ever seen the E30 333i?
Yes.
That is
It has
oh my god, I love that car.
the digital dash as well in the fan.
Yeah, and it has these like Alpine style wheels as well. But they took a 3.3 liter engine and just dropped it into the E30 frame. But it's a factory specific, like it's a real car.
Yeah, well, there's that factory. It's a Turbo 7 Series that like they still have not made an M7, but supposedly that was as close as they got.
South Africa
only.
got the 320 SI as well. It was an M3. It had an M3 engine but it didn't have
E30 or 36.
No, the E30.
E30, yeah. Because they also had this car which was the E30 Shadowline, which was kind of I think what you're describing actually. It was like a modified 328 or 325 or something that was unique to SA. But it's not the 333i. The 333i was like was the awesome one.
That one I've never heard of.
Yeah, you should look it up.
I think it was a 733. It might have been I don't know. It was a Turbo 7 Series, which was supposedly like the coolest thing.
So the only other, I just wanted to come back to what Jan said about Ronin, and then ask the actual director. Is that the best car chase scene in?
There's two. There's two.
In cinematic. Hey, I'm asking the director.
I would say Ronin was like a massive deal to me in terms of, I mean, it also came out at a time I wanted to get into directing. Okay. Because it was like 98, 99.
Yeah, 97, 98, yeah.
And that, I would say, yes, it probably is like top 3 best.
What else? What are the other two?
Well, I think they get a little bit blurred sometimes between filmmaking and sort of spectacle versus just cars. Like Ronin is exceptional with just cars, right? Yes. But something like the helicopter chase at the sort of like in beginning of the third act of Terminator 2, right? Where Linda Hamilton's in a van. Like there's a crossover. Sometimes it's hard to delineate between them. But if you're speaking just cars, I mean, Ronin is what would come to mind probably as number one. Okay. It'd be hard for me to think of something else that's higher than that. Like, what else would you throw in there?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't, but because Ronin is it like we were talking about with you're dropping Easter egg cars in your movie.
It's so specific. Like there's Sean Bean asking for that Audi.
No, it's Sean Bean. It wasn't. It was the American where he goes, I need something that really moves, like an S8.
Yeah, and it wasn't Sean Bean. I haven't seen it in a couple of years.
It wasn't Sean Bean. It was the American guy who smokes a lot who gets killed. But like that, if you're not a car person, it's whatever. It's just tech talk.
Didn't he want like NOS or something?
Yes. No, he wants injectors. Injectors. Yeah.
Okay. It was a very specific ask.
But if you're like a car, I remember in the theater, I hit my buddy Dave. I'm like, dude, S8, and he had no idea. He's like, huh? I'm like, whatever. And then there's an M5, and then there's a
John Frankenheimer also directed one of the BMW films from the early 2000s, which had, I think, your 7 Series.
I see. Okay.
It's sick. It's
Yeah.
a really good.
BMW films. Look those. If you haven't heard about that series, just Google it right now.
That's the only successful one of thems that automakers ever pulled off.
Yeah.
where they
Maybe
very cool.
one with Madonna in the same
Yes.
series.
Guy
No,
Ritchie,
it's an M5. It's an
Guy
M5.
Ritchie,
Ah.
Madonna.
Yeah. E39, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a nice. Those are
What
nice.
about the
M5s.
Luke? And there's Luc Besson movies that are really good from
Like the Transporter.
Yes, from chase scenes.
Luc Besson stuff is really cool. Actually, and it has this Euro flavor too. His stuff.
So, but back to this. So we wrote an article after we had and this shout out to Mike Schaefer. I don't know if you remember him chatting with you, our
I do.
photographer.
He lives in Tokyo now.
He lives in Tokyo now. He's a very successful automotive photographer. In 2015, he interviewed you after Chappie and asked you all about your car collection. And in fact, I should have reread this before I talked to you because at this point you had just sold that LFA. This is in
I hilariously bought it back. I bought back
Oh.
the exact same car because I missed it so much.
and then you sold it again.
Then I proceeded to sell it because I was trying to buy a piece of property, which we ended up buying. But I think the car probably appreciated more than the property. So
Oh boy! But you've owned an LFA, you've owned.
I seem to have a history of buying the same car.
ZR1.
I've had two Z06s and one ZR1. The ZR1 I gave to the same brother that crashed the M3.
Oh, smart. Yeah. Yeah.
But that was
if you were just going faster, you would have missed the tree.
yeah. The best way to go is a 640 horsepower rear wheel drive car.
Perfect.
But
Yeah. I see no problem with that.
no, so two Z06s and the ZR1, which would be the same thing over and over again. But I had a 2005 NSX, which has the headlights.
Oh, yeah.
And I could never reconcile owning that car with the wrong headlights.
You mean the non-pop-up
Yeah.
headlights?
Yeah.
So recently, I got a 1997 NSX, which is
nice.
like, I
Oh,
just
yeah.
cannot. I literally don't think I've ever loved a car as much as that, except the LFA.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great.
I like them the way that like they're a piece of science fiction design. It's engineering meets sort of art and form. So that's why I love cars. But I've become obsessed with naturally aspirated, very high performance engines. Like probably because of the LFA.
So do you have a GT3?
No,
Oh.
but
When are you getting a GT3?
I don't know. There's this hilarious interview with Gordon Murray. I mean, I assume everyone on this podcast really understands cars, but if anyone doesn't, he's building this thing, which is the T50 at Gordon Murray Automotive, which has a Cosworth V12.
Yes.
Which is like, it's like an 11,000 RPM, like stunningly
Even
beautiful
higher,
engine.
actually. Yeah, it's like 11.2. It's
like
wild.
just
yeah.
the coolest engine ever
I've
built.
heard it. Yeah. Second coolest. Valkyrie engine. But anyways, go ahead. Go ahead.
But also built by Cosworth, by the way.
Yeah, it is built by Cosworth.
But have you ever heard the quote from who's the Worth of Cosworth? Whatever his name is, he's like turbochargers and superchargers are for people who don't know how to build engines.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
awesome.
Sure.
So anyway, that engine and being developed by Gordon Murray and Cosworth, and then just the McLaren F1 pedigree of Murray. I saw this interview where he's talking about a GT3, and he's talking about it like it's Toyota Yaris.
Yeah, right.
Have you seen this?
No, but I can imagine it.
Yeah, he's just like, you kind of, I guess you just do what you can, and there's a certain rev range that it kind of comes alive, and you just get the groceries.
Yeah, well, he's talking about a $150,000 car versus what's a $250
million.
Well, it was $3 million. I think it's gone up since the pandemic started. Yeah, I mean, and
which one, the McLaren or the T50?
The T50, I think the price has gone up. And look, the T50, nice engine, but like you could have styled it. You could have made it look semi-interesting.
You know what it does have though that I love is the any car that has the McLaren F1 like window within the window. Is or like the DeLorean. It's like, God, I love that.
You ever driven a car that does that? Because I've driven. It's horrible.
So you like the Subaru?
I just love how it looks. Yeah, what is that?
Why?
The
Is it
SBX or whatever?
Imagine getting a parking ticket.
SVX.
Imagine
SVX.
anything you would do with a window.
Yeah.
It's gone.
You have to like snake your arm.
Yeah,
through it.
I've driven a lot of like Countachs, and it's just misery.
But a Countach isn't designed to be driven though. I mean, it like
No,
smells
not
like
at all.
glue and it'll catch on fire and burn your back.
They're just very slow. They don't turn. They don't have any brakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like the concept. I mean, maybe it's more F40 than Countach, but it's like the steering wheel, and then your legs are like where the passenger is seated for the pedals. So you're at like a diagonal.
You got to take your shoes off to fit in the pedal box. I mean, the whole thing's ridiculous. Yeah.
awesome.
But it's still my favorite car.
So
Countach.
Without, there's no second place. Yeah.
Which era?
I prefer like a 86 Quattro Valvoli 5000S.
Yeah.
Bigger the wing, the bigger the flares.
My version of that is
Gold.
the Diablo.
Yeah.
The Audi built Diablo, the 2001, with the 300ZX headlights.
Yeah.
I love that car.
If you get a chance, though, the sweet spot for me in the Diablo range is the SV. It is just the actually first Lamborghini that drives awesome and incredible. But
I want an early one, a 93, the ones that have the grey mirrors.
Yeah.
That's that next car.
But
How many
Diablo.
cars? How many cars do you have in
3
your?
right now.
Okay.
I had a, when we talk about GTRs, I had a 32 before, but it's like, I'm going to buy a GTR, I'm going to buy an R32. It was a V-Spec 1 in blue. And I bought it with the intention, okay, if I sell it in 3 years' time, because I think it was 22 or 23 years old, maybe I'll get my money back. Drove it for 3 years, sold it, but I don't miss it.
Did you get your money back?
A bit more,
Oh,
more,
nice.
but I used that to buy the Ferrari, which is my dream car, because that car was the first car I had of any poster, was that exact car, that colour.
I had
Heavy.
a Ferrari F355 that I just kind of sold.
that's a
a year
gorgeous
ago.
car.
I missed
Oh,
that. Yeah, I miss it a lot.
That's
I
a
kind of want
gorgeous
it
car.
back.
So to answer your question from earlier, why the bell? So this is where we're gonna go and probably gonna end because we're running up on time here. The podcast is called The InEVitable, and it's about the future of the car, and really it's about in the near term it's about EVs, and we haven't talked a thing about them. I just skimmed this article we wrote about you in 2015. Mike Schaefer asked you whether you'd driven a Tesla Model S yet, and the answer was no.
Mm-hmm.
Have you spent any time with any electric vehicles yet? A bit in between, Neill. Do you own one?
I have a Model S Plaid.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah, which I love it so much. It's hard to put into words how much I love that car.
why do you love the Model S Plaid so much?
Because it's like driving a nuclear missile. Like it is so quick. Obviously, it doesn't handle that well. But I have a lower back issue, so I'm like switching out chairs pretty much weekly and looking for the most ergonomic chairs that I can find. And I realized a few months ago in Vancouver that I was putting a chair in the back of a 1,000 horsepower car. Like I don't know how many cars you can do that with. You know what I mean? And I was
right.
like, this is a cool car.
So it's coming out real soon. There's a thing called the Lucid Sapphire,
Yeah, I know it.
which if you think that's quick, because I've driven the
Yeah.
Sapphire, if you think a Plaid's quick,
Yeah.
boy, wait do you meet this thing?
It kind of feels like metrics around performance are. It's kind of why I got the 97 NSX, because it's become. Electric vehicles make performance stats irrelevant almost, right? It's
Well, okay, hang on real quick. Only qualify that. They've made acceleration stats irrelevant, but
Yeah.
the Sapphire, which you're going to really start seeing once other people are driving it, is now making left and right stats irrelevant because it's got the fanciest dual motor setup in the rear where
Right.
you can
you mean
be-
cornering?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like you can be fully turned in one direction and floor it, and it doesn't. Even though it makes over 1,200 horsepower.
Yeah. It controls
It
it.
takes it. And
Yeah.
it's literally insane.
Its Nürburgring
insane.
times probably still wouldn't be great though, like relative to like.
It might be. This car is going to change a lot of things.
But the thing is, when they apply that to something that is like a Rimac Navira,
yeah.
I mean, even that car probably is going to destroy almost anything on the Nürburgring.
The Sapphire is just different. Anyways, just.
I just like Tesla more. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, and I love.
Have you driven a Lucid though?
No, but it's not. It's also. I think the Model S Plaid looks stunning as well. I think it's personally for me. I think it's beautiful.
Okay.
So, but it's 1,000 horsepower. It's super silent. It's very easy to drive.
Yeah.
It's such an awesome daily car to have.
yeah.
when
know?
did you get into it?
We got to get him in a Sapphire.
2 years ago.
And before that,
I had a Model S P100D that got written off. I got the Plaid because the other car got written off. So I've
how
had
did it get written off?
It wasn't my fault.
Okay.
It was. I mean, I know it sounds like that would be my fault,
like-
but it wasn't.
Was it your brother?
Left to his own devices, he would write off everything that I have. No, it was totally not me. In fact, the insurance in Canada, it's ICB, or in British Columbia, it's ICBC, and I heard that they never give you 100% like fault free because you're always like on the hook for something. And I was considered 100% not at fault, but it was someone who just went through a red light and just like T-boned me basically. And the car, I mean, I described it like the car got written off. It was a hard impact. And I described it like a relatively normal landing on a dirt bike. And the airbags didn't deploy.
Huh. Yeah,
So
it's a
they're
safe car.
super
Oh, yeah.
safe.
So,
Yeah.
but prior to that, because it seems like you were fairly you were interested in Teslas, but not that much.
I mean,
how'd you get into that? Is that was the first EV you got into?
Yeah. I got the P100D and my wife got a Model X, and they are really nice to drive. I mean, just daily.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the Plaid was so quick that I noticed myself becoming less interested in internal combustion cars, just because the performance is so insane. Then I directed Gran Turismo, and I was like, oh, this is why I like cars again. Yeah, like all of the engines and the way that even just having gears and cycling through gears and getting the revs up, and then I think I have an interest in both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jan, any EV?
Never driven a Tesla, but
You raced Formula E.
Yeah, so road car, never driven anything electric apart from a Leaf years ago, but
let's
nothing.
not talk about that,
I sat in a Rimac Navara recently, actually, and I had a really good talk with the guy, showed me around it in the dealership, and it was pretty, I think it's like 1900 horsepower.
I wish...
it was ridiculous. He's telling me all the stats about it, and I'm sat in it, it looks beautiful, and I was very surprised, but I've never driven anything road car wise. Race wise, yeah, Gen 3 Formula E, I think it's like 500 horsepower ish, and it's the tires aren't really slicks. But I love engines.
Mm-hmm.
I think for an electric car in, say, London is no brainer.
Yeah.
Like if I lived in London, I'd have an i3 or something, like a hybrid, something electric.
You're going 4 miles an hour anyways.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if I want to, I think inevitably.
That's what it's for. Anytime you say inevitable, I hit the bell.
Yeah.
There you go.
It's brilliant.
Why
right?
inevitably?
Head of editorial for MotorTrend thought this up all by himself.
Yes, I did.
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
See?
Well, I think down the line anyway, they're going to get much. Range is my thing, and any car that I buy, it has to do 450 miles range.
Lucid does 517, makes 833.
Is he sponsored by Lucid?
I wish I was.
Product placement. Speaking of product placement.
If they would send me a check, I would cash it.
Okay. All right.
No, they're just really cool. If you like the Plaid, it's the guy, one of the guys that was the engineer on the Plaid went to Lucid and engineered this. So it's like everything.
Well,
he
not only
couldn't
that,
do.
Peter Ronson, the head of Lucid, was the chief engineer of the Tesla Model
the
S.
CEO, the CEO of
roots.
Lucid was the chief engineer of the Model S. But Greg, we had him sitting right here.
Yeah.
He was a engineer on the Plaid, and then he went to do the Sapphire, and it's just like.
All right.
Crazy fast.
I do a lot of dumb stuff for a living, and like when I launched that Sapphire, it was like the first time again. It was like, whoa!
Yeah. What I need to understand from a technical standpoint is, like, obviously with electric cars, like with my P100D, if you look at the torque curve, it makes sense how radically the power drops off, right? Because that car has no gears. Like even a Taycan is a second gear. I think, right?
Yep,
doesn't it?
It does.
So you're allowing the RPM of the motor to drop back down and be re-powerful, right? Mm-hmm. So with a P100D at maybe 150 kilometers an hour, it's like 17 or 18,000 RPM. So it makes sense if you punch it at 150, it's like it's got nothing left to draw from.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that is stunning to me about the Plaid is I do not understand how at 150, if you punch it, it snaps your head back like you're at 0 RPM.
New motors. So can I say this? So the next Porsche EV will not have a transmission. Will have one gear. Will not have a 2-speed because whatever it is, and I'm trying to thread a line here. The new motor technology has a flat torque curve forever. So
but it can't be forever though. Like at 2
forever
million
enough.
RPM,
forever enough.
Yeah,
So
it's
you
just
hit
a
the
weird
aerodynamic.
concept.
Yeah,
It's like I want to understand that better.
I wish I don't understand anything, but they don't need it anymore. They used to need it because of that generation motor technology. New motors are so much better.
Right.
So.
Well, we're going to
I
have
think
to call it here.
Yeah.
We got some pacing PR people, and I got the wrap it up signal. So this has been awesome. We should have both of you on again.
I'm down.
Anytime you're in
sweet.
town, and we got through all the stuff. We can get down to all the other just sort of general car stuff the next time you guys show up. But the Gran Turismo movie will be in theaters tomorrow in America, and it was awesome to have. Oh my God, Jann Mardenborough.
That was good.
Okay,
pretty
awesome.
good. I like that.
And Neill Blomkamp.
Nice.
Okay, great. The story is based on Jann's life, and it's directed by Neill. and
It's really good.
and it's really good,
really
says Jonny.
good. It's
So-
a good car movie. It's just a good movie.
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you for coming
Thank
in,
you
guys.
guys.
Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thanks for having us.
Thank you.